It was do or die time in the semifinals of Clutch Chess Champions Showdown. Four of the best chess players on the planet were back to do battle for the two coveted spots in the finals. World champion Magnus Carlsen sealed the deal against Levon Aronian, while Fabiano Caruana staged an epic comeback against Wesley So to book his ticket to the championship round. It's Magnus versus Fabi, number 1 versus number 2. Day 7 of exciting action coming up next.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Clutch Chess Finals. I'm Jennifer Shahade, and I'm here with Grandmasters Yasser Seirawan and Maurice Ashley for a thrilling finale. Yes, welcome.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. Hello, Maurice, and hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this first day of the finals knockout match of Clutch Chess. World champion Magnus Carlsen was chill. He was smooth. He did the Magnus thing, and he was a dominant player in the semis. But the way Fabi got there was something special on a completely different note. He did it with an epic comeback, and I'm just amazed. We've got the finals. We were looking forward to a rematch of the 2018 World Championship match of 12 games. This should be a lot of fun, Maurice.
Indeed. What more could you ask for? I mean, it's number 1 in the world versus number 2 in the world, and not by a close margin either. They're the only two 2800s on the planet. And as you said, they played a world championship match against each other. It was drawn after 12 games. Magnus won in the tiebreak, which was rapid chess. But lately, Fabi's been showing it, and that match coming back against Wesley was really one that was special.
And let's take a look at how they got here, as it couldn't have been more different. It's actually as different as their playing styles. Magnus Carlsen really dominated the entire match. He started the final day of the semis with back-to-back victories and then coasted to the win, actually clinched before the final game. Fabiano, by contrast, actually had a terrible day 1. And he just pummeled Wesley So yesterday. He had 3 victories in the regular games and then that crucial clutch victory, leapfrogging over Wesley So to take the epic comeback.
A fantastic comeback for sure. One for the ages, no doubts about it. And welcome to the finals, to our finalists. And what is our format and schedule going forward?
We've got 2 days, so your weekend will be filled with these thrilling games between Fabiano and Magnus. Today we're going to play 6 games, and then tomorrow we're going to do the same thing with those intensifying clutch games. We've got a time control of game 10 with a 5-second increment. For those of you who are just joining us, hey, welcome to the party. It's great to see our viewership grow as the days go by. Yes, welcome everyone. This time control, I love it because it can create masterpieces, but it can also create absolute blunders. And I think we're going to get a little bit of both today.
No question about it. Thrills and spills. And Maurice, drill down a little deeper on these two titans and how do they match up?
Well, absolutely no complaints that we have these two wonderful players in the event. Where they got here, well, certainly different paths. Magnus had to take care of the young upstart Jeffrey Jean, who did win a clutch game, but Magnus at the end said, listen, I'm the boss. And then he proved it once again against Levon Aronian. We didn't expect that match to be that different, that kind of different score, as Magnus really pummeled poor Levon. Fabi, on the other hand, had a solid match against Lanier, but it was this razor sharp on the edge, almost on the edge of the cliff, was Caruana, and had to come back against Wesley So in order to book his ticket to the finals. And it's now the two of them. Well, we know fabulous Fabi can indeed get it done. You see him ranked only 11th in the world, but lately his rapid play has been superb. We've seen him play very well at this time control. He remains the number 2 in the world, of course, at classical chess, losing that match in 2018, as we said. But it's all about his sterling play, his incredible preparation. We've seen him drop novelties and new ideas, even braggadocious ideas like that check on H4 that he allowed Wesley sacrificing a rook early in one of their games. Fabi comes with these kind of poisonous innovations that you have to be prepared for. When he's got you in his clutches, forget about it. His technique can be ruthless, technical, precise. That is what Magnus knows he has to watch out for, as this young man has defeated him many times before. But Magnus has told us, you know what, playing against anyone, I'm optimistic. And why not? When you have the #1 ranking in the world, the #1 rapid ranking in the world, you're the current world champion, you've been champ from 2013, you're the boss, you're the big dog. They have to come get you. And Magnus defeated Caruana as he tried to unseat him in 2018, but he continues to show, does Magnus, the Norwegian superstar, that he's just simply unparalleled. He is chasing not to be the best in the world, but be the best of all time. And his record has shown it. He has won classical events. He has won blitz events. He has won rapid events. What hasn't he won? It's a question of piling up the numbers. Every event he wants to destroy his opponents by showing his best chess. And speaking of which, against Fabi head-to-head, his best chess has been pretty good in rapid and exhibitions. 19-9. Woo, that's a spanking, folks. That does not look good for Fabi fans. But as I said, Fabi is looking to somehow shed those ghosts of the past and finally take down this incredible champion. We'll see if he can get it done in Clutch Gen.
And well, thank you for that, Maurice. Jennifer, it's always prestigious when we have a #1 versus #2 in any sport. And, you know, a lot of honor at stake, but tell us about the business end of things.
Well, it is the largest prize fund in online chess history. That's right, $265,000 are up for grabs, including a fat $50K for first place. And there's also all that clutch money. Maurice, how big could the pot get?
Well, it's been getting bigger and bigger, and we've got a nice chunk of change in front of us because of those draws in Game 12, in 3 of those Game 12s in the quarterfinals, 1 in the quarterfinals, and both of the semis, in fact. We've got an extra chunk of change that showed up in bonus money that is landed on games 11 and 12, 20,000 to be precise. So since that money is split, instead of those games 11 and 12 being worth the traditional 3,000, they are now worth 13,000 each. Add that up, that's 26,000 extra, plus the 4,000 from games 5 and 6 that will be played today. That's 4 more. That's 30,000 in bonus money alone. Somebody's gonna walk out of this match with $50,000. And maybe a chunk of extra change. Ka-ching, can you say it's nice to be a chess player these days?
It certainly is. I remember my U.S. championships, I think 6,000 for first was what we were all fighting for. So times they are changing for the better. And I'm being asked to make predictions. Well, what do you say, Jennifer?
I'm sorry. I am a huge Fabiano Carol fan, and I'm hoping that it's close and that he even wins. But I got to go with Magnus predictions-wise because it's Magnus. Fabi is so precise, so good at the openings. But in Game 10, I'm just worried about those last 2 minutes, Yaz, that Magnus is going to be sharper in the last 2 minutes. And I don't know if I can honestly say I'd go for anyone but Magnus here.
Well, I mean, you're certainly going with a favorite, no doubt about it. And Magnus, he's the world blitz champion. He's the world rapid champion. He's the world champion. So you're making a good pick. But, you know, that comeback yesterday, if you're not feeling it after something like that, I don't know what to say. I'm going to have to go with Fabi. It's just what he did yesterday just was so stunning. Down 6-2 after day 1. Come on.
It was a remarkable comeback, and I want to go with him, Yaz. I love your American optimism. I love it. But you know what? I go back to that game that he played against Wesley, those final 2 minutes where it just went back and forth. And I'm just afraid that Magnus would have turned that game around. You know what I mean? But Maurice, let's let you break the tie.
Break the tie.
Well, I'm going to have to agree with my elder, Dr. Seirawan. Indeed, he's a wise man. Of course. I mean, I'm saying all that tongue in cheek. The reality is Magnus is the favorite. That's clear. That's no question about it. But I'm going to go with Fabi. I'm just going to throw out a Fabi comeback again. I think it's going to be Fabi, and I think it's going to be in a comeback again, going with the underdog to be sure. We'll see if he can pull it off. And the games have begun, and it looks like VAR has gone with Magnus. VAR we have in the truck has gone with Magnus. So we got 50-50 on the panel. 2 of us will be right, and 2 of us will be wrong. There are no tied matches here.
Oh, no. And we have a game similar to yesterday, guys, although I believe there was a D take C3. Anyway, the pawn on E4 was taboo because there would have been a queen G4, forking G7 and E4. So what do you make of this, Yaz? You must like this for white.
Yeah, and so does Magnus. As this whole line has been in his repertoire for some time, it matches up. It's kind of an echo of the Sveshnikov systems that he was playing as black in that World Championship match in London in 2018. The ideas from White's point of view is he's got, well, it's kind of hard to say that he's got central control because black can always play for C6, D5. But what Magnus is trying to do is create a flexible situation in the center. He's going to make a development like with his knight coming to F2, his bishop coming to G2, and he's castling. He's looking to play the game with the 2 bishops. That's the way I could put it.
I know you're not looking at the updated board because I saw you looking at your analysis, but now check out what happened.
Whoa, rook E8, the Fred, king F2. That was what we used to call this in Seattle. We wouldn't play odds games with each other, but we would play 1 F2, F3 as white, followed by king F2, followed by G3 and king G2. So we lose a lot of time. We spot our opponent something, and we called it the Fred. King F2. Okay, do not do this at home, anybody. And
it looks absurd.
Don't do it in the finals. What is?
Can you say that, Yaz? I mean, I just want to put it out there. It looks absurd, right?
Of course.
How dare you develop your king to F2? It looks like he wanted to maybe move another piece, but it couldn't even be a mouse slip because it's hard to go king F2 if you meant to play bishop somewhere else or the queen somewhere. You wouldn't get to F2. That's a way off. And then to compound it, if you did blunder king F2 to a mouse slip, you wouldn't play D2, D4 to open up the game or give your opponent a chance to open up the game.
On the next move.
On the very next move, you say, oh no, what did I do? And then you just say, let me fix all this quietly, give my king to G2. This is wild. And now Magnus is actually stopping to think after the very natural D5.
Wow.
I
don't know what to say, guys. I mean,
I like your predictions right now. Beautiful position for black. This is making me want to sign up for this line, guys. I have played some variations of this before, trying to make the English into a basically like an Imzo Indian. But it's this activity for black, Yaz. It's very attractive. But does it look better than it is?
It looks great. I mean, it looks good enough to my eyes. Obviously, this king is terrible on F2, and we're absolutely sure that white somewhere in the very near future is going to be playing king G2. So that's another tempo. And black's pieces, knight C6 and taking on E4, playing are suggesting themselves. I don't know what to say. I look at this.
It looks horrible. It looks just terrible.
I'm having this imaginary conversation with myself. It goes like this. Magnus has Peter Heine as his chess coach, his trainer. And Peter wakes Magnus up in the morning and says, I've got this great idea. Magnus, I need you to play king F2. And Magnus goes, what? or let's reverse it. Magnus says to Peter, I've got this great idea to play king F2 in the finals tomorrow. And Peter's like, I will strangle you if you do this.
That's what I saw it, Yaz. I audibly gasped while you were talking. And I wanted to just jump in. You were talking and extolling the virtues of development and the bishop on h3 and all that, right? And I was like, yes, sir, please bail us out. What's going on with king f2 and then d4? I mean, I'm glad to know that you have the same reaction as well. But what's interesting about this position, though, is Fabi played d4. And I got to tell you, with a king on f2, I wouldn't have cared if I lost the pawn. You could have had my d5 pawn. I would have been looking for sacrifices somehow, pot shots at the king. I would never have shut the position down and played d4 just to get this passed pawn, because I get the feeling like I'm just blocking up the position in white's favor.
Yeah, like what about
looks
queen
very
b6
snug
check?
on this square.
Like what about queen b6 check and queen b2? Well, queen b6 instead of d4.
Right, something like this would have made more sense to me.
And then check, and you can't play queen d2 because then I trade queens and I take on e4, right? And
exactly,
everyone's happy then. I mean, yeah.
Exactly. Something like that looks like it would make more sense to take advantage of this position.
Although maybe you have bishop d4 in between move, not to get not to get too much into the weeds, but I'm just saying like queen d2, bishop d2, pawn takes e4, bishop c3. Does white hang on there? Maybe, but it's certainly in black's favor.
I'm so happy to play that
after
line.
queen b2.
She's saying queen d2 right now.
Oh, I can't play queen d2 because my rook hangs.
Queen d2 is hanging a rook.
My rook hangs, yeah. So I can't even trade queens if I wanted
although
to.
in this line, no, bishop d4 was playable there, by the way.
I do, but it looks so convoluted.
It does look convoluted. What do you think this is? That might be the name of the variation, is the convoluted king. I mean, who puts a king on f2? What move number is that? Move 7?
Yeah.
So the point is white still had some ideas even against that, but it is sad to see that pawn blocking the potential attacks of the king on f2. I have to totally agree with Maurice. You almost want to wipe it off the board.
Well, exactly. You're kind of thinking about peace sacrifices and, keeping things wide open. You're almost like looking at stuff like this.
That's what I'm talking about. That's the Yasser Seirawan we know.
I mean, it's kind of hard to believe because the king, in a very strange way, ultimately will probably be safe on g2.
That's true.
But in the meanwhile, I mean, you want to, slash and burn and do something a little bit more extravagant, let's say. After d4, knight e2, we have the feeling that knight f4 is a really nice move because it's looking to blockade the position on d3. And again, one of the things that I'm really finding at the very highest levels is that the top players are having a hard time getting play against one another. Positions where, it's not about preparation. Magnus has achieved that. It's truly remarkable. And after knight f4, let's just catch up with the players. Okay, so Fabi's looking to maybe play knight c5 and d3 if he can get the chance. And no, we're not coming back to blockade. We're coming back to plant on a very rooted, beautiful square in the center of the board, d5. Rook drop back. Okay.
Fabi has just respected Magnus's play almost completely in this way. Magnus didn't just wake up, fall out of bed, and drop king f2 on the board. You know that.
Right.
So
yeah.
So for a fact that he had this prepared. We just have to say, for us, it's a remarkable move to see on a chessboard that you move your king to this square that early without developing your pieces. Now, he's achieved the position where that king may look a little off on f2, but you're not getting at it. You're not hitting it in any way. And it only takes him a couple of moves now to move his rook to the e file and then bring his king over and then his other rook to the b line. And you're starting to like white's game more and more and more. Black's only real break is f5. Like as a true break, but it looks like it's under control. I think I said it, and he did it. I said it was under control at the moment, and Fabi said, I'm playing it. Thank you very much. It's on the board. I've got to do it. Let's go. and now he's taking on e4. He could have played it before, by the way, before he played rook back to e8. He could have played it immediately.
Well, I played rook e8. That was.
Oh, I'm sorry. I saw. Are you sure? He did play rook e8. No, he played rook e8 in the game. He played rook e8 and then put his knight on e5. So at the moment when he played that, back when he played that move, rook e8 on move 14, he could have played f5 right then. You always look for breaks. You always look for pawn break, pawn break, pawn break, pawn break. Right now, he could have executed right in that position with f5 instead of bringing his rook back. First, he brought his rook back, then brought his knight out. Then the second time his rook ended up on e5. Then he executed what is the thematic break Black should be playing for. Because, man, look, the guy's king looks a little suspect. Somebody's got to go knocking on the door. And the way you do it is to break with pawns. You're not going to just sack all your pieces to get there. So you've got to look to see if you can break open with pawns. This was a very interesting play, and it has finally frozen Magnus for a bit. Although Magnus has been playing very slowly, guys. He's under 5 minutes already. Fabi with 7-11.
Wow. For somebody who brought such a remarkable surprise as King F2 to the table, I wouldn't have expected that it's Magnus who's down on the clock. I just wanted to say that before the move f5, I was really getting myself all excited for Magnus's position to play the move f4 followed by e5 and queen h5. So I saw the move f5 as not necessarily, ooh, I got to go after White's king, but more like, ooh, I better stop f4 and e5 and get in my break now. If White gets f4 and e5, it's very unlikely that I'm going to be playing f6. So I saw it as a kind of a defensive approach, a good approach nonetheless. And after takes on e4, this is where Magnus is having a long think, and I'm really not too sure why. For me, bishop takes e4 is more or less an automatic, because I'm thinking, get your pieces out, right? And I always want to get my pieces out with a gain of tempo. So if I could take with the bishop and then follow it up with queen d3, I'm seeing a tempo over here. So for me, bishop takes e4 is automatic. Maybe rook takes e4.
Yeah. Rook takes, what would be the benefit of rook takes over bishop takes? That maybe the rook on e5 is kind of active. So potentially after bishop e4, there could sometimes be a rook h5 tempo. But he did agree with you, Yaz, and he took with the bishop. And
remarkable he took that long. He's at 3:29 only and 7:01 left on the clock. And Fabi instantly played bishop f5, trades on the board. Magnus does get a 5-second increment, but it took him a lot of time to evaluate that this would be the way he wants to play. We do have a very interesting position, as that king is not going to be in any trouble anymore. The king on f2 can go to g2, and it's not going to have any problems.
And there's just too many trades, right? I mean, there's too many trades in the position, Maurice. And you were saying the knight on d5 is...
The knight on d5 is superior to its black counterpart. But the truth is, having lost that pawn on e4, that knight is not as stable as it used to be. So it can be challenged later. A knight e7, for example, not now, obviously, because the rook is sitting on the e-file. But sooner or later, the knight can be challenged. I don't think he's going to play an exchange sack, although that's in the works as well. A rook takes on d5 if necessary. But this kind of position now, Fabi can play queen d7, double rooks on the f-file, and look to play chess. Look for his chances. The biggest thing for him is to say, I got out of this novelty. I don't think the opening novelties matter, by the way, in matches like this. I really don't. I think it's about play. I got out of it fine, and I'm ahead almost 5 minutes on the clock.
That's very meaningful in this type of time control. It's very meaningful.
Magnus is playing like it's a classical game, guys.
Right. Now, having said all of that, I still, in the weirdest way, I understand that Black is going to play queen d7 and rook f8. Well done. I mean, great. I will play f4. That's my majority speaking for itself. The rooks are going to be doubled on the f-file for Black, but I'm going to shut down the f-file with the move f4. Let's say queen d. Let's just put some moves on the board. Queen d7, king g2. Let's just put another move on the board, rook f8. And I'm not saying that this is the best move or anything like that, just to try to get a flavor of the position. Now, here I actually have a problem. I'm not 100% sure where my queen should go, or whether my rook should lead my queen, something like rook e4 and queen e2, or I don't know, queen b3.
By the way, I should point out,
Yeah.
Yasser,
Yes.
that Magnus is currently down still, 2 minutes and 9 seconds left. Rook f5, queen d7 did happen, and he did double rooks on the f line. Magnus played rook b1. And
Rook b1.
remember, chess is so much about breaks. I see 2 breaks for black, and that is b5 and g5. Now, g5, ooh, that's opening up all kinds of issues on your king. But the b5 break, on the other hand, had to be stopped because b5 was going to happen and the knight on d5 was going to have its legs kicked from under it. So Magnus was really smart in playing this move, rook to b1. He said, listen, I'm going to make sure that move can't happen because my knight needs some kind of security. And also let me get my king to a safe spot. So he's got both. Fabi just played rook from f back to f7 and rook to b2 by Magnus. Magnus down under 2 minutes now. And for me, again, that knight on d5 is annoying, but I can't play the knight e7 I want to play because of the d pawn, the d4 pawn. So if your queen leaves, just give me a break so I can play this move. I think we're going to see b6 and eventually knight to e7. He's going to try to figure when your queen leaves, that's what I want to do. In the meantime, I think the rooks might want to double on the e line, although b5 again comes into mind.
Well, the story for me is I feel that this is a clear advantage white, but the issue is the clock management, or in this case, mismanagement of the clock by Magnus. Will that come back to haunt him? I mean, from White's point of view, he wants to use his kingside majority, and that means like literally leverage it to an attack. And I'll show you how he's going to do that in just a second. Black has this pass pawn in the center, which isn't going anywhere. So to my way of thinking, if I'm white, you're right, Maurice, b5 could, really impact my knight's stability. So, you mentioned the rook b1. I was thinking if you're really worried about b5, just stop it with a4 and play rook a2 and rook e2. In any case, for me, what I'm thinking is white should play the move a4. He should play rook e2, and he should play rook e6, okay? Once you get those 3 moves in, you can really get a feeling like white is beginning to take more and more territory. He's making advances. Now, I'd just like to hear from you both, like, where do you see black's active play coming? Should he play g5, as you mentioned? Or
No. I don't like the break g5. I think you're right. He does. Right now, black has to be very careful, mindful, especially of that doubling of rooks. So, okay, before I could say anything, he played rook to e8 and said, let's get rid of a pair of these rooks, challenge these pieces, and at least you don't see a rook like you planted on e6. That was just too good. So that's on the board. He did double rooks. And
very natural move.
Time to get rid of a pair, it looks like. He could also reconnect with rook back to f8 as well, just so that he's ready again for later. But certainly white is more or less for choice. A4 did happen, as you mentioned.
It looks like white is somehow hanging on by a thread. I wish if I were black, I could find, if I were white, I would love to be able to play a move like a f5 so that I could play rook e6. Thinking that tactically you can't take on f5 because of rook takes e8 jack, but it seems like f5 could be met first by taking on an e2 and then taking on f5. So that idea doesn't work. So let's flip it around. Like, how do you increase your advantage here as white?
Exactly, but your idea is correct, Jen. I mean, it's the principle in the position of you as white wanting to leverage your majority. Your majority is the king side. And you're the prop possessor, so you start thinking, how do I play f5? And maybe that means you play g4. But you start thinking, how do I build an attack? Now, on the other side of the board, black's sitting there saying, well, the queen side is fine. a7, b7 is fine. Pawn on d4, I own it. But where is my, counterplay?
Look,
he's just played queen f7, so he...
Wrong attitude as far as I'm concerned. At the moment, unless you play g4, you want to play g4 and give us something to look at. If you don't play g4, it's time to play the time on the clocks. That you have that when you play blitz or rapid, you play the time on the clock as well. Fabi says, I'm up 2 minutes. Let me just play as best I can, play some solid moves, maybe a B6. Now with that queen on E4, maybe not. Just
we
be
saw
mindful.
Queen D3. We saw a trade of rooks on the E file, Maurice, followed by Rook D8. And it's funny that we should be, harping a little bit about the knight stability on D5. But you got to admire what Magnus is doing. He's protecting that knight.
That knight is
for
a big
all
deal.
Of its worth.
I was thinking something like A5 and knight B4 as well to challenge this knight, even though I weakened the B6 square. I'm not totally happy, but we know exposed kings when queen and rook endings, even if I have to shed a pawn, let's say my B pawn, for example, I'm willing to do that in order to get to this sort of ending. G6 played, I'm not a fan because
the move queen E4, as I see it, it goes with Jen's idea. She wants to use her majority to attack. And to me, that's really, really logical. And I'm worried for Fabi that F5 is going to be menacing. So
and guess what? We have
G6.
We have G6, but after G6, not only do you have to worry about F5, but we also have the less positional, but potentially
deadly,
scary move G5 as well, just locking into the F6 square.
Okay,
and that's why
F8.
Black played King
right,
F8.
you are. King F8. Another reason for G6 is if you intended to play King F8 and Rook E8 and trade the majors, you had to make sure that queen takes H7 wasn't lopping off a pawn. So we have king on the board. And, we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but Magnus earlier in the game did make the decision to play King G1 and not King G2. And I wanted to draw attention to it because I did not understand the move King G1. I thought the king was actually better and safer on G2. It was at a time that the queen could have come to H3 as well. So now that our opponent has played King F8, I would just be inclined to play King G2, bring my king up the board. And guess what? I'm sorry to say that I'm just a little bit behind the players because I think that's what Magnus did. He played King F2, I beg your pardon. King G7. Uh-oh, a very, very bad sign. It means that Fabi doesn't know what to do. You keep
talking about what to do, yes. It's 2 minutes to 1 minute right now. What you do is you play the most reasonable move when you have no idea and let the guy figure it out while you're looking around. And until Magnus figures it out, it's too much time to be burning looking at what to do. Figure out something solid. Now, Magnus has put his pawn on G5. Is this crushing? Is this something that's going to do damage? Fabi now has to be alert in this moment because he could trade off material with Rook E8. What's the deal with that ending?
King F8, H3. What? Sorry, you say the pawn is on G5? I don't have that updated on my board. I have H3 as the last move.
Oh, my apologies. No, it is Fabi's turn. H3 on the. Okay. Sorry, I was analyzing actually. No, so this is the position. What about
A6 on the board?
A6. Usually you don't touch pawns when you're waiting around. That's another principle. A6, I'm a little afraid of. That creates a really big weakness. And Magnus has been zugzwanging with his king. Again, challenging
G7.
Fabi to find a good move. Notice the clock times are almost even now. 1:14 for Fabi, 47 seconds for Magnus. Fabi still has a lead. He has to dare Magnus to find a move if he doesn't see what to do. And Magnus has now offered a trade of queens with the move queen to E6. Now that is finally something very concrete to play. And Fabi has traded queens and played king to F7, attacking the rook.
Exactly.
Okay. I feel a little bit of relief now as Fabi. I was getting afraid that I was going to get F5 and checkmated somehow. Now I'm feeling like maybe I can consolidate things. Like I'm even dreaming of playing like D3 and you take my pawn and I play knight B4 check and I draw the end game. I don't know, guys.
Or B5, as Yasser just pointed out.
Yeah, B5, right. Does that work right away?
Not now.
No, the knight on C6 is hanging.
Okay. Yeah. Even there, like B5, rook C6, takes on C4, you still have to calculate a little bit.
Yeah, I'm one of those guys. I just love space. I love. What was that?
Fabi played rook to g8, going nowhere.
Whoa.
Allowed Magnus a free move in that position. We're not sure what rook g8 threatens, but Magnus played rook h6 immediately. And look at this, and this is what I was worried about. When you don't have much to do, you've got to reset your brain and let the clock be your friend. And he let Magnus now have a lead. Remember that 5-minute edge? It was 5 minutes. He instead played some moves. Magnus played his same moves he was going to play anyway. And now Fabi is down to 26 seconds to Magnus's 48. That's absolutely remarkable. I mean, just remarkable.
For me, it's a terrible position for Fabi. He doesn't have active play. I keep talking about active play and putting together a plan. He doesn't have an active plan. He doesn't have active play, I should say. And for me, all of White's pieces, if you just do a comparison check, the kings, edge white.
Definitely
rooks, edge white, knight,
everywhere.
edge white.
And by the way, we're in the time scramble now. 17 seconds left for Fabi as knight e6 check was just played, and now the pawn on d3 disappears. 4 pawns for white, 3 pawns for black. But knight e7 just played, threatening rook takes c4. Can't we just play rook d4?
I would play c5. I like the knight sitting snugly on the e6 square, but I have to be mindful, I mean to say, about the move king f6. Maybe I have to play knight check first before deciding how I'm best going to defend the pawn. He's played knight g5. That's just what he's done.
Because now king f6, there's rook d6 check, forcing king g7, and there's f6.
9 seconds left for Fabi.
No way. We see king back to e8. And now, sorry, Jen, you wanted to play rook d4 to just defend the pawn. Looks like a good move to me. Can Fabi play rook c5 though?
What about just taking on h7 and starting to push the f pawn?
That looks good too. I'm all for that. Rook takes, knight takes, rook takes. How would it go? King g5.
Yeah, king g5. Exactly. It's like. And then you'd probably want to try rook c5 there. But instead, Magnus just started marching right away with king to e5. Rook c5 check.
King e5?
Allowing rook c5 check? What's the point of this?
What was the point of king e5?
Is there a mate somewhere? What if knight takes pawn f5 now? And he's down to 4 seconds is Fabi. 2 seconds.
Knight takes f5, but what about knight h7? Okay.
And what's the deal? Why did Magnus give this away? Because knight to g, and they played knight e4 and knight g7 check, king to d6, and he's taking the seat. I mean, Magnus is down a pawn.
Oh my God!
He just really thrown this away in Fabi's time pressure, and it's Magnus who's down on the clock and is now thinking of making it draw.
Oh my goodness.
Time pressure, folks, makes fools of us all, including the star players. It's about your clock handling and feeling the pressure in the moment. And both of them have felt it, including Magnus. Now Fabi can think, maybe I can try to finagle a win?
Well,
my God, he's a pawn up.
Yeah, with true words, Yaz. But look at that active king on e5.
Yes.
True.
I feel like he's gonna figure out a way. Knight c5.
Always check the white king backwards.
And he did that. And now he's
that's too much. Now it's a draw.
Well, now he's thinking knight e6 check, but the problem is that even in mass trade, we are going to be close enough to make that draw with the a pawns. I mean, the rook pawns.
With the pawns, this is going to fritter away now. You know, Yasser, I mean, as they continue to play, this is still definitely a draw, and they're both relaxed now as they know it. Yasser, you were showing how beautiful the position was for white. And of course, you were 100% right. No doubt about it. In the objective world, white was dominating in that position. But when you're playing the clock, when you're playing under these kind of conditions, despite the beautiful winning, Magnus was just winning. Time has to be calculated as a part of these games. They just do. And you can look at white, you see white is up. When white clipped off the D pawn especially, this was toast. This objectively was toast. But you've got to give pressure on the guy when you're worse. When you're defending, don't start looking for active play when you realize you don't have it. make a few moves, look around for his active chances, and see what maybe you'll get something later in the game. Fabi allowed his time to tick all the way down. 5 minutes disappeared, looking around for stuff to do. He was very fortunate Magnus didn't win this game.
No question about that. I'm still in. I mean, Magnus has made a very good living off of winning positions, not even as good as this one. He had a really good position. After the move F5, GF, we get down here to move 43, but...
And this is a score, guys, after one game, but we definitely have a lot of incitement in store for us if the match continues like that, guys. I mean, They were playing to just seconds at the end. So, of course, even the top players in the world will make mistakes. You just got to get a move on the board. You don't want to lose on time. And that's what that time scramble was about.
Absolutely. Well, I just got to draw our attention to this moment where Magnus played the move rook takes d3. And frankly, I'm a bit surprised by that. I think a lot of grandmasters would have gone for the knight g5 check first. The idea is that, you know, your rook on d6 controls the f6 square, and you want to make sure that the king, the black king, remains, you know, passive, right? Like backwards. Like it's great if you could get the king, for argument's sake, to go to g7 when you could push the pawn with a tempo. And after a move like knight g5, I don't know what you're supposed to do with black. Let's just play a move here, king here. Now, actually, you know, it's not like the d pawn is going anywhere, but your f pawn just might win the game. I would have thought that the move knight g5, you know, you got to look at checks first, right? I mean, they're the biggest threats you can make in a game of chess is a check. So you got to look at, and that check to me, just like that flashes in my mind. I don't see anything else except for rook takes d3, which was played. So a big miss by my Magnus in my view.
May I ask
and a bad opening.
May I ask you? Right, out of a crazy opening. But may I ask you or remind you guys, we've seen Wesley So go 3 pawns up.
Yep.
Do you think this one is worse than the ones that Wesley failed to win? Couple of times he was 3 pawns up and failed to win. Yeah. Right? We've seen position. We saw Fabi against Wesley, that game where he was completely dominant in the opening. It was on day 1 in this event, right?
The Evans Gambit.
No, this one was not that bad for a blitz mess up. I mean, we've seen
that's what I'm saying. That's
this
what I'm
is a
saying.
game 10.
This is blitz. So you have to combine the good moves with the quick moves, with the time management, with not feeling that pressure. And the thing is, we used to say back in Brooklyn, listen, it's not about the clock. It's not about the play, right? It's really how you handle that clock when the pressure's coming. You know, guys used to start making moves that were closer to the clock. Like move your rook closer to the clock when you have to press it. Move your rook over here where I'm closer to the clock. All those little tricks as you handle the time situation. And the pressure just simply is there. It's present. Magnus has played Fabi before. He was excited about winning the game and what a great start it would be. Even the best of the best games.
How are we feeling?
Or draw games they should have won or lose games they should have won.
How are we feeling about our predictions after just one game? It's too early, in my opinion.
I'm feeling great. No, on the contrary, I think Fabi dodged a bullet and
a big bullet.
That was terrible. So I'm feeling like Fabi's. I'm happy for Fabi that he got a draw in that game. I really am. I think that ending. Magnus should win it 9 out of 10 times.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
absolutely.
I agree with that. Although.
Well, sometimes that 10%er comes in, guys.
That's right. That's right. More often than the 10% merits.
The issue is, what effect does that game have on the rest of the match now? Does Magnus just go, whatever, this guy can't stay with me? Or does Fabi say, I got a bad position and I still came back? Maybe he's not in form
those
today.
semi-matches, those semi-final matches, the opening games, those games 7, for example, and those games 1 of those matches dictated the day's play, if you will.
The tenor of the rest of the match.
Exactly. And, I mean, a draw to open the accounts for both players. Wow. I don't know. I think Fabi's happy. I think Magnus is maybe a little bit growl.
Hopping mad is what he is. He walked out of there and said, "What? That was my chicken or beef or sushi or whatever he enjoys in Norway."
Right.
I know they're great. They're famous for their salmon.
Salmon, yeah. I heard that players had a lot of salmon in the Norwegian Olympiad, right? The one in Tromsø.
Whatever it is that he enjoys, I'm pretty sure he's not vegan. Whatever he enjoys, he felt like it was taken out of his mouth this last week. For sure.
Okay, here we are. We're up and off they go. Fabiano
E4.
with the white.
Let's see. Is it going to be a
E4.
C5? Nope.
No.
I was wrong already. Double king pawn.
There we say Berlin is on the board, and avoiding the Berlin endgame is Fabiano.
Exactly. No Berlin endgame and no anti-Berlin with castles and rook E1. So in many ways, this variation really does transpose to a kind of a Joko piano. For those of you who play the bishop c4, bishop c5 variations, you'll likely see a position you go, oh, I know this. As a lot of the variations of the open e4, e5 classical are transpositional. Bishop d7. In this particular line, this knight on c6 often is seeking to migrate to the king side via e7 and g6, which is what's happened. And I got to say, guys, we're seeing some high elite preparation, let's say.
None of that king f2 in this game.
No king f2.
Nothing strange coming out the gate. This is definitely one of those you might look at and see them play 30 moves, and at the end, or maybe 35, and say, draw? Yeah, draw. In classical chess. Of course, we are not playing classical. We are playing combo, rapid, blitzish kind of play. And White looking for his little something, and Black playing all the moves that we all could have played and pretended we were geniuses with these moves so far.
Standing on the shoulder of giants with these motifs like A4, knight D2, knight F1 to G3 to fixate on that F5 square. And I like these openings a lot because usually tactics kind of pops off in maybe move 40, move 35. And really, it's a cliche, but this type of position, the player who plays better wins. It's very strategic. And I find that we're going to really see who's in form this game.
Well, I was curious because I wanted to say White usually aims for D4. White stays back with the pawn on D3 and eventually says, sooner or later, I put it on D4, and Black needs to respond to this expansion. And he played D4 immediately. So we do have what is just one of those positions.
Yeah, a couple of things that jump out. When you play the move D4 in these types of setups, one of the things you've always got to keep in mind is, can my opponent play D5? Like, I know it looks ridiculous, but oftentimes if your opponent is able to get in the move D4, D5, he equalizes quickly. If you don't play a D5, another approach is to take an attacking approach in the center and either force the move C5 and you'll play C4, or once you play C5, open up the C file. Magnus has gone to door number 3. He said, I will take your pawn on A4. And that, no doubt, was a very big surprise for Fabi, because normally speaking, you're not, classical rules say, don't separate your pawns, keep your pawns intact with one another. And Fabi said, look, I've studied my classics. I'll play bishop takes. Pawn takes in the center, seating White, the central pawn duo. Fabi says, what are you doing? Magnus says, I'm doing this. I'm trading bishops and I'm trading queens. And Fabiano says,
why did Fabi trade queens, though? I feel like when you have the center, you have space. At least this is how I understand things. You have the center, you have space. Your opponent is fighting for air. the more trades you make, unless you have some really concrete thing like his A-pawn, for example, is such a big weakness that you're going to be able to pile up on it with doubling rooks. I mean, he's going to put a pawn on A5, of course, and bring something over to D2, and he's not going to have counterplay. But it just feels like you let some of the advantage go by giving him a chance to not worry about space anymore. Now he gets to just play against the position. And I'm not a fan of Black's pawn structure, but I liked it so much to keep queens on the board and maintain that space. Hearing from VAR as well that he says we didn't like that queen exchange either. The engine didn't like that exchange either. And we see Magnus again lounging backwards, showing that he likes the shorts when he's at home.
He likes the shorts.
He likes the shorts. And he's just relaxed, folks. He's just completely relaxed playing this position.
He certainly is. And he's just played the move D5, taking a stab at white center and saying, okay, go ahead, play the move E4 if you like. I'm going to undermine the E-pawn with the move C5. Fabi said, okay, I got to take. Now, I've been thinking that this knight has got to come to F5 really, really fast, and it's happened. After knight F6, D6 by white, Black recaptured, and we've seen knight F5.
Better knight on F5? Yeah? Is it much?
I don't see too much in this for white, actually. Comparatively speaking, the knights look, okay, a little bit of an edge for white with this knight, but I don't know.
It's not a middle game. The knight is so powerful in a middle game because it leads to sacrifices on H6 and G7. And in endgame, it doesn't really pack the same punch.
Where's my queen? Could I have it back so I can sack something, please? That H6 sack would be so scrumptious at some point. I'd be threatening ideas, but the queens are off. Now it's just about precise endgame technique. Rook to E6 played. It looks like an awkward square for that rook, but it's probably temporary. The only thing is, for the moment, white is attacking the pawn on D6, and white is attacking the pawn on A6. So he's played rook to C1, and he said, look, you're not attacking anybody. I'm the one who has you looking at the pressure on your buttons. So maybe I'm not better. The pawn structure is very symmetrical, D line over. It's B versus A, but I'm the one right now with a little pressure. You have to pay attention. That's it. Now, is that enough to beat Magnus Carlsen? Well, Magnus has 8 minutes on the clock, and again is looking pretty relaxed. So it's enough for white to feel like, well, I'm not worse. I'm not going to lose this anytime soon.
Well, let's start with a concrete move, something like A5, right? I mean, you mentioned that, hey, look, man, I don't like this pressure on the A6 pawn. Let me play A5. I'll, on a good day, play rook B8, and I'll kind of counterpunch you a little bit against B2. If you go down and say, hey, I got the old double attack, you're in trouble, I'll go D5. And
that solves 2 pawns in 2 moves.
Right.
That's pretty useful sequence right there for sure.
So, I just didn't know how. I mean, I think white's a smidge for choice. Just it's temporary, but I do feel that white's rooks are a little bit more active. The A rook on A1 versus A8, and the rook on C1 versus the one on E6. I just don't know concretely, how to make things work. I'd love to be able to make a tactic work with a D4, D5 push. I just don't see it. Weak piece for
white, 2 weak pieces as we're discussing it, as bishop to D8, avoiding the rook C6 by putting the bishop on a very odd square on the back row. Now that's a deep retreat. Putting your bishop all the way to D8, where if you ask, well, where's the bishop going to go now? You say, I'm not really sure. Is he looking to play knight E7?
Right.
Could have done it.
So what happens on rook C6 now?
I think the same. I think the same thing,
coming.
Jen. Rook C6, which attacks 2 pawns. It's a 2 for
You still get to play d5, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I do understand the move. Again, like I'm a simple guy. I like to think in very simple strategic terms. I always make these piece comparisons, and I say, which pieces are working. And to my mind, the knight on f5 is a good piece. So the move bishop d8 prepares to trade it off with the move knight e7. So I can support that move. And we've seen, by the way, rook
No, we haven't as yet. That's
just bishop.
But let me ask you, Yaz, don't we always have a way to back up? Like, suppose you do trade the knight on g6 for the one on f5, and then after we take and play knight h4, is it in a case of we're getting our knight back to f5 anyway?
Deja vu. I'm not sure. The answer to that question revolves around g7, g6, right?
Yes.
So give me a move that you like for white. B3.
I want to play rook a3. I want to play rook a3 is my first instinct.
So knight e7. Do you want to go?
Maybe I should play knight h4 first rather than show my cards right away. Yeah.
So it often happens that I can't boot the knight when I got a pawn sitting on the h6 square. It's really hard to get rid of that. So oftentimes to get rid of the knight and play g6, I've got to first preface it with h5.
Okay, so now I want to double on the c line. That was the point of my play.
Okay.
I wanted to have all the options, either to put the rook on the a file or bring this rook to the c line. I don't want you to get a chance to breathe in a position like this, just to improve the rooks. Instead, another move, deep retreats. One deep retreat deserves another. You play bishop d8, I play bishop d2, and the 2800s are giving us a lesson in unorthodox moves, as this move bishop to d2 was eyeing this square, and Magnus has now played d5, eyeing the a5 square, as that arrow points out. Now d5 protects the pawn. Will he play bishop a5, or will he play a move like rook c5? This is some interesting play by these players, although it still looks very equal, even more equal if you play the move bishop to a5, in fact. I think the bishop on d2 is better than the bishop on d8, but now this knight, which I thought was a problem for the longest, it finally had an idea to go to e5, or at least an avenue to get to e5, but he's decided instead to head it to the c5 square and played knight to e1, another deep retreat. And Magnus saying, okay, enough of the fancy retreating moves. I'm just going to go forward. And look at Fabi. Fabi just put his bishop back to e3. What's happening here?
Confusion reigns. Very hard to guess the last three moves of Fabi. I didn't see bishop back to e3 coming. I thought he was planning to try to trade off the dark square bishops. He's played bishop e3.
Oh, there was a tactic, Yaz. On the f file, you have to be mindful the f2 pawn was hanging after knight e4. There might have been a
he might have had
a rook f6 action if you moved your bishop away.
Right. So
don't we have d4? Or we just don't want it.
But then he'll pile up on your knight. Knight e7.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the question is, after knight e7, getting rid of white's best minor piece,
which has occurred.
Yeah, I mean, I start to like black.
Knight to d. Black still has weak buttons. Knight to d3 threatens knight to f4 for one. Does eye the c, and then which would be attacking the d pawn. Does eye the d5 square, and that a6 pawn still's on the board. White's main deficit is the b2 pawn, and rook b6 has been played to attack it, to remind white that that pawn is indeed on the board. But he doesn't have great access to the d4 pawn. White, however, can play a move like rook a5 and press on the d pawn and say, how are you going to hold this position together exactly? For now, b2 is defended. Can you cover everybody? And by the way, the clock times are very different this game. Very even, 5 minutes each. And now king f1 on the board.
This one I really understand. I was seeing rook b3 as a threat, and attacking this knight. The knight really needs to stay rooted to defend the pawn on d2. So I like the move king f1 very much. I like the idea of being able to meet rook b3 with king e2. And after king f1, Magnus just said, okay, rook b5 stopping the potential of rook a5. And
now rook to c2.
Rook c2 was played, just your favorite concept over protecting b2.
Oh,
we know.
Save me from these slings and arrows.
Okay, there is another idea. The knight on e4 will be booted eventually by f3. The g3 square is not that significant, but the knight can end up on c4, and I'm impressed by that knight. I will tell you, that's a very nice piece.
You don't like f5? Because knight g3, knight f5 could be interesting as well. Although the c4 square is very appealing. There's some cool squares here available for that knight.
Bishop to f6 now on the board.
Knight d6 shoots at both of them. That's the thing when you go back.
Knight d6 gives options, both those squares. But bishop, the minus though is the moment you do things like bishop f6 and move your knight, then white gets to play knight to c5 for free. So you do have to be mindful. It's not just white. It's not just you who'll be attacking. That rook c2 move over protecting b2 was definitely had some wisdom to it, because it means the knight can now move. The knight on d3 can in fact move at some point. And b4,
wow,
taking the pawn off of b2 and relegating the knight on d3 to permanent duty, basically on d3 at the moment. That's an aggressive move. I think he's looking for rook c6. That's what it is. He's looking for rook c6, and he wants to tie this pawn down first.
Okay, so if Black re-energizes his attack against the b pawn with bishop e7,
then rook a4. Bishop e7, I'm going to play rook a4 with both ideas again. He has played bishop e7, and I'm just thinking rook a4 allows for rook c6 and for rook a2. Oh no, rook a2 is not possible because of knight c3.
So
right, so I can't play rook a2. I'd have to play rook c6.
Sorry, rook c6? Rook a...
After rook a4. If rook a4 now, I mean.
Yes, rook a4 now. I see. Okay.
That's what I was saying. Defending the pawn and playing for rook c6. Man, they're at move 32.
Yeah.
If they traded off a couple of pawns, we'd say high-class game, draw between monsters, rook a4 on the board. This is high-level chess. They've done all this in 6 minutes.
I know. The play for this game has been remarkably fast-paced.
And quality. Quality, though. Like
exactly. They're playing great chess, guys. But will it continue as the time ticks down? That's always the question, right?
Right.
Rook a4 played.
We just saw in game one the clock making a mangled mess of the position at the very end, and a very fortunate Fabiano to get a draw there. Time is not a factor, but it's beginning to creep up on us. I would have thought that Black would like to play g5 and f5 and f4 and get something going on the king side. He hasn't. He's just played, well, I don't want to say mundanely, but, I think correctly, attack a weakness. Weakness is only a weakness if it can be attacked. And the b pawn is under threat.
Subtle distinctions now. You could take on a6, allow bishop takes b4. That does change the position. And he did not. He played bishop f4 first, attacking the rook, and rook to b7, keeping that pressure. But he's no longer on the back rank. Is there any energy in that direction?
There is a knight c5?
Knight c5 must take with something.
If that b pawn gets turned into a
C
pass
pawn.
C pawn. Okay, then I'll change horses and say I like white. But oh, sorry, rook takes
Rook takes
I'm
B4.
blind. I'm blind.
Good tactical shot that he noticed. So rook B7 is playable. By the way, Fabi's now under 3 minutes. Magnus at 3:40. Magnus was under Fabi's time, and I think that Fabi was surprised by this move and only now noticed this possibility. Now he could just keep things clean, take on A6 and say, I'm trying to get out of here with no worries. Just take. He's played F3 first. Again, that move told the knight knight's over on G5, heading to E6. I guess I'd be happy to see that happen if I were white for sure.
Well, the knight on E6, I mean, it will be attacking the pawn on D4. So the knight on E4 looked good, but I just didn't know exactly what it was attacking. Whereas the knight on E6, I mean, that's quite useful. We saw quickly a trade on G5. Apparently, Fabi did not want to see the knight land on E6. And so now this just looks like really well-played draw.
Yeah, it looks like he has a lot less. I wasn't thrilled by seeing this move. Bishop takes on G5.
Me either.
It just looks like it just let the air out of the position. The wonderful dynamics we were seeing, the tension was building. It's about time for him to sort of trade off the buttons. He could even defend his pawn on B4 with rook B2, and that position would really balance itself out.
Sure.
This is not much anymore. Fabi down to 137. Best bet, Fabi, make your draw. Don't do anything crazy.
Right.
Just get out of this position, say, okay, it's all good. You're at 128. Clock is starting to be your enemy. Just play straightforward moves. This is not an advantage for either side here. Rook takes A6, bishop takes B4. Instantly, Magnus pressuring him on the clock.
What a reversal of game one, where it was Magnus way behind on the clock. Is it harder to play white, guys? I mean, what's going on?
No, maybe a tiny bit harder, just because, you don't want to take on B4 and then allow the rook to attack D4 and he gets stuff more before you get stuff.
I think it was an existential question you were asking, right? Yes?
Yeah.
Not whether or not in this game, but in general, because both times white was down on the clock.
Yeah, what is going on?
Right, I see what you're saying. Yeah, well, I do think that, in these rapid games, we often don't see a very high percentage of edge for white, do we? It's
Well, that's why the absurdity of game one, where Magnus, essay king F2 early in the opening, is indicative of that trend, that white's not getting play in the position. And so sometimes you have to do something absurd that hopefully isn't terrible. I mean, you don't want to take, obscene chances, overplaying your hand. And, it turned into a great fight, actually, for a game that had such a strange opening. It turned into a great fight. By the way, the players are now in a rook and pawn endgame 2 versus 2. Dare I say it, we're about to see the match tied after 2 games.
Yes, the 2,800 struggle. Don't expect any blowouts. If you thought Magnus was just going to dominate this one, these two are all-stars. These two are all-stars. Fabi knows how to play, and Fabi has brought it. Magnus has brought it. Maybe not the most exciting, sizzling chess ever. I was on D2.
Yeah, but on the other hand, it's encouraging, because it shows that we're really going to get a good match.
We're going to get a good match. Exactly. That's the point. We have heavyweights, and don't expect them to make ridiculous blunders, all the time. Fabi did play a bad game one, though, we must say. He was lost.
Yeah.
So pretty quick, pretty brisk. And we're waiting for the draw to show up, as they're now on move 58.
Right.
They can accept the draw at move 60. And I think they're just quickly trying to get to it now.
Because we have a rule in the clutch chess event that draws cannot be offered before move 60, right, Jen?
That's right. Move 60. And we've seen people obviously figure out how to do repetitions if it's a dead draw, or king versus king. That's another way where even Chris Bird, our international arbiter, is going to say, okay, no play here.
Bear Kings. Got it.
It's kind of nice to see Bear Kings in so many games. It really does show that fight to the end. And you see, we started off this match with 2 draws, guys, but don't worry. I know there's going to be a decisive game today, guys. When will blood first spill? That's the next prediction.
We will not see 12 draws like we did in the World Championship match. No. We have a special coming up for the viewers.
Yes.
And we're going to take a little look at Magnus Carlsen and some of his clutch moments, and there were many over the years, and we'll be back for Game 3.
In the last round of the inaugural Sinkfield Cup in 2013, soon-to-be world champion Magnus Carlsen declined a draw offer that would have won him the tournament. The rest is history.
That these guys might be getting fatigued, and that was where, in a lot of their interviews, they spoke about their stamina and the need.
And it looks like there might have been a verbal offer of a draw in this position, and Magnus now twirling a pawn. Levon offered a draw.
And Magnus is thinking about playing for a win?
Magnus thinking.
Fascinating to see if he makes a move with the fact that his 70,000 has literally been handed to him. It's more than just, and he has made a move. Incredibly, he's declined the draw offer and decided to continue. With 70 grand in his pocket, he can win no more. There's nothing beneficial to him to making another move, absolutely nothing. And he has actually decided to continue playing and allowed other results to enter. And the knight on A1 is trapped. Incredible lines, but it looks as though if Magnus now plays this move, knight to C4, after king D8, he will be winning, at least have a big advantage.
And we have it.
And there it is. Magnus Carlsen is the Sinkfield Cup winner, the champion. He's creeping closer to 2,900. We have a comment on Twitter that Magnus Carlsen turned Lev's draw offer down. That's by Michael Waters, because he previously said he wanted to be world champion and 2,900 by the end of 2013. And he gets one step closer with this victory at the Sinkfield Cup, leaving him far ahead of his rivals and securing the $70,000, the trophy, and more importantly, I mean, making a fabulous impression to fans all over the world.
Since 2009, our mission has always been to teach and promote the value chess brings to our community. In these times of social distancing, it's more important than ever that we stay connected to carry on that mission.
We are currently offering 24 weekly classes online through our YouTube and Twitch channels. We're also holding tournaments and private lessons online.
From the comfort of their own home, students can enjoy all the benefits of our Scholastic Chess Initiative digitally. Our Scholastic outreach continues with virtual chess classrooms, Scholastic tournaments, and Scouts BSA merit badge workshops.
On behalf of everyone at the St. Louis Chess Club, we hope you and your loved ones stay safe and continue to watch, play, and enjoy the game of chess.
Can you hear it? It's the sound of hope and health and strength. It's the sound of compassion, of open doors, where people and machines are in tune and miracles occur. It's the sound of personalized healthcare and active communities. It sounds like life, and it's what you hear when you really listen.
Hello, everyone, and we are back for Clutch Chess, and we just started game 3. I thought this was going to be the first game that was decisive. Let's see how my prediction there goes. It looks like we're getting...
When did you say that?
I always feel like game 3 is like a big game. Game
Really?
3 always feels like the game that draws blood.
Okay.
And Bishop F4, a London system opening for white. I'm thinking that Alexander Grishik, you got to give credit where credit is due. Sasha kind of really put Bishop F4 back on the map. And then Hikaru Nakamura kind of took it up and said, you know, that's pretty cool. I like this system. And since that time, it's always been popular with club players. You just get your bishop out from behind the pawn structure, and you get a very different game than maybe the channels of, I don't know, a Nimzo Indian Queen's Gambit Declined. And we always welcome new challenges. And by the way, after the move Knight H5, pardon me, we didn't see the bishop retreating back or moving, but captures on C5. So we're hoping, Magnus is hoping that he can grab a pawn on C5. Queen A5 by Fabi says, this knight is pinned, it ain't going anywhere, and I'll pick up the pawn with queen takes C5. Being told by VAR that move Knight H5 itself is actually pretty rare at the highest levels.
It reminds me of the game that Magnus played Jeffrey, where Magnus allowed knight takes on F4, then put the game where he put his knight back on G1 from E2, and then put it back on F3, and then play Queen D2 and castled queenside and blasted Jeffrey. I think it was maybe game 12 of the clutch chess of the match they played. Game 11 or 12, he just said, I'm just gonna play like this, and won the game. But certainly it was where he played knight E2 to G1, allowed knight takes F4 this way, and knight H5, knight takes F4, and then went about his business. But Fabi said, no such luck. I'm not letting you get away that easy with that attack. And, well, Magnus could have maybe tried for it, but he's restraining the dark squared bishop of black with the move C3. Fabi does have the two bishops, but mainly that bishop on the G7 square, and he's going to want to somehow use it so that he can show to Magnus, hey, look, this is a strong piece. Why'd you give me yours? Now I got mine.
Right. Also, I'm being told that move 10, knight B3 by Magnus was a very new approach. In fact, never been played before. And that's hard to do these days where we've got our database of, I don't care, 8-10 million games. To play something so unique on move 10 is rare. Bishop G4, basically saying, okay, move it or lose. Move it, and I'm expecting Magnus to play knight D4. Now the question is, would you give up the dark square bishop if you were given this position as black?
No, I don't want to.
No,
make money from my dark square bishop.
But guys,
that's such a good bishop.
I'm taking notes here because I feel like whenever I play a blitz game and somebody plays the London, I get this miserable position with no counterplay, and I'm looking at Fabi and I'm like, wait a second, black. Let's do this. And you just have to be precise and you have to be prepared. And suddenly this type of opening doesn't have the teeth that it does if you're just kind of making automatic moves.
Well, I got good news for you, Jen. The St. Louis Chess Club has 1-900 operators standing by for any of you out there who have trouble with the London. You can call $2.99 a minute.
Yeah, that's just like it's a different line than our time pressure addicts line, right?
Right.
Just make sure you get the right extension.
Right. So Queen E3 played, and actually that was a pretty coy move by Magnus because the move actually has a well, do we want to call it a threat? I'd call it a threat. The threat is to move to E5, occupy the dark square, followed by knight D4, again, occupying dark squares. And Fabi said, look, let me just get rid of that thing. We've got bishops of opposite colors on the board. I'm going to play E6. And if anybody has a smidge of an advantage, a small whiff, that is to say, it's going to be black.
Yeah, but look at the last two moves. H4 by white, trying to get that Alpha Zero-esque Layla-esque pawn down to the H5, H6 square. I don't even see how it gets to H6, given that you have this beautiful bishop, but maybe just H5 and trade eventually. But Fabi said, no can do. I'm going to stop that. Magnus said, let me play G3 and rook E8, rook F to E8 at the moment. And both of them are still at arm's length. No piece across the fourth rank at the moment. I think this entire game, only Black's bishop that went to G4 has crossed the fourth rank in this game.
Yeah, the line of demarcation has been pretty severe. And this is what I spoke about when I was referring to the opening Fred in game one. I mean, this, unfortunately, is a terrible example of what the elite players are facing. I mean, there's no play in the position for white here. This position, in my view, is really, really even Stevens. I mean, Black will probably bring his rook to the center, move his queen back, and say, okay, I don't know where we're punching one another, but no punching going on. So that's why I'm saying that approach that Magnus took in game one, you know, you respect it, even as you're kind of teasing it and saying, you know, that's pretty ridiculous. You're going to extremes.
B5, an aggressive move.
And look at this, an immediate knight E4 from Magnus, with the idea that after pawn takes E4, bishop takes E4, and not only are we attacking your queen, but we're ready to take on C6 and fork your rook. So that knight is taboo.
He played it instantly, by the way. He played it instantly. Now sitting up in his chair, he was leaning back before, but he feels like, oh, got a little trick off. He snuck the knight. He wanted to get it to G5, which was his, which knight D2 couldn't do. He couldn't play knight E4 in the previous move because you just get it captured. So the knight goes back to D2. It's almost like he read his opponent's mind. B5 lands on the board, and Magnus instantly, talk about an alert assassin. This guy is so alert. As soon as the pawn landed on B5, he said, oh, now I can do this. And knight E4 just banged down on the board. And suddenly Fabi goes, whoa, I didn't see that one. I thought I was doing something. You can't even try any aggressive moves against these guys. They come up with instantaneous tactics. And that one has caused Fabi to go into a think. By the way, I was mistaken. The Black knight did play knight from H5 takes on F4, crossing the demarcation line earlier as well. So only Black so far has put anything across that fourth rank, that invisible line separating the two forces along the fourth rank. But Magnus now with the ability to go to G5, he's going to be parked on that square. I mean, parked. You're not going to play F6. That's starting to get a little scary.
Not anytime soon, that's for sure. The other problem is that from Black's point of view is there are sacrifices. Now that this knight got to this really wonderful square over here on the king side, there are sacrifices that you've always got to be careful about. Bishop takes is one of them. I mean, especially now that I walked into a fork, shame on me. But even if it wasn't for the bishop, let's say we'll for the rook fork, because the knight is here, we could parlay that also with ideas of H5.
That's what I like. That's what I like. And I think that's where Fabi's starting to panic now.
Feeling open the position on the king side a bit. So the dangers are, I mean, it's nothing terrible, but there's some danger alerts. We do have queen D7 on the board, by the way. Knight G5, and Fabi said, okay, that minority attack was just a bluff. I just put the pawn up there to restrain you. And by the way, D5, D4 would walk into bishop E4. Sorry about that. Okay, bishop C2. No G4.
Listen, that knight didn't deserve. I'm going to tell you, didn't deserve to get to G5. Fabi is not happy with himself, and Magnus was very alert. He's aware of the moment. And B4, ignoring the G4 idea. Again, bishop C2 was so that I think against G4, he was maybe concerned of an E5 idea.
Just a second. So rook D8. G4 concerned about an E5 idea?
I wanted to. Oh well, E5 is also is a real tempo as well. But I thought he could take and then play E5. That's what was my concern.
Makes sense.
Something like this, and you're still he gets the break just when he needs it. And here your pawn on F7's F5 is actually hanging and pinned. I can't quite take it. Maybe can I play E4? I mean, this is not possible. Okay. What about knight E7 going after the pawn?
Knight E7. Ooh.
I know you're getting excited,
knight E7. We want to try knight F7.
We sure do, right? I mean, my spidey sense started tingling as well.
I get you. I
didn't quite see the mate though. The king will drop back. Where does the king drop? Okay.
You're only attacking with one piece.
Yeah, that's true. I can't get my rook into E3, but it is fun times in this position. Bishop A4, though, that's the other thing about the move B4. It opens up that diagonal. So Magnus playing on both sides of the board. Who would have thought?
Let's go get back to the position at hand, because this move Bishop A4, when the bishop dropped back, I think Magnus had this idea, well, I can come back to G4.
Mm-hmm.
I will sidestep the impact of any E5. My bishop might be on the way. By the way, the rook is kind of opened up. So I appreciate the move Bishop C2. The move B4 was a little surprising because allowing this pin, I don't know, guys. That might not have been the best thing to allow, because, wait a minute, this could be really annoying.
Queen C8 played, and what black is really discoordinating his forces. Something awful. I mean, G4 is back in business. Is there an F5 in business?
Well,
give up the F pawn for the H pawn or the D pawn. Hey, that's a trade I like, because even if you play F5, your move Maurice, and then E takes F5, suddenly the F7 square is juicy.
Yes, exactly. You get total access to the light squares. Actually, I'm just thinking dominate the light squares, because you've got an opposite colored bishop position and you can dominate the light squares. That looks like toast.
F5.
I think, and we're being told F5 wins. F5, the move you want. F5.
Oh, well, because pawn takes E
Magnus
takes F5
has played it.
There it is. Grand Prix, baby. This reminds me of the type of move you play in the Grand Prix that just blows everything open. Actually, after E takes F5, isn't rook takes C8, rook takes C8, queen D5 just completely bust out?
No, that's correct.
Yeah.
You're cracking the light square. Remember, it's opposite colored bishops, so the light square bishop is going to be king. If you make this bishop into a real piece, you're going to get crushed. The bishop on G7 is wondering what it's going to be active, but if one side gets an attack on that opposite color, then the bishop of the other color cannot help. And here we see everything. It's just that diagram you're showing.
That's resigned. That's
scissor action everywhere. You're just busted. So
it's pretty sad, Maurice, that I probably survive longer if I take with the G pawn than the E pawn. That's not a good sign. That's not a good sign.
No, F5 is a killer. You have to take. I think you have to take with the G pawn, because your whole position is coming crumbling down any second. And he did decide that's what he's going to do. Boy, this looks
not a happy circumstance
awful
for Fabiano.
He missed knight E4 on a protected square. A pawn. We talk about this often. Squares that are protected by pawns are often invisible, not noticed, hidden to even very strong players. And Fabi thought, I'm covering E4. Oh, wait a minute. A knight just landed on E4. Then later, I'm covering F5. Oh, wait a minute. A pawn just landed on F5. The two moves that have caused him, one, positionally to go down, and two, tactically to be in a world of hurt, have been on squares that were seemingly perfectly covered by pawns. And turns out Magnus was alert to the fact that they weren't. And look at this, Magnus doesn't even take on H5 right away. He wants more yummies. C4, another light square attacking move.
It's actually funny because I did not see the move F5 going back just to this moment. Maybe in a classical game it would have occurred to me, but I did see the move C4 because I was thinking, let's parlay that pin on the knight on C6 into an attack. So I was thinking C4 all the way. When you guys pointed out how powerful F5 is, I said, yummy. And it's kind of funny. We both get in the same break, the attacks that we wanted. C4 on the board.
Amazing, yes, that your eyes would have been drawn to the move C4. Who would have thought it?
I might be able to win a pawn versus gifting a pawn away.
Well, he took 26 moves. He took 26 moves to play your favorite first move, Yaz.
Right.
Better late than never. As C4 on the board. Again, a square that a pawn is guarding, but in this case, you don't want to capture on C4 and drop your knight on C6. Or, I mean, everything is falling apart. Forget it. So this position is crushing, it looks like. What to do as black. This is a masterpiece by Magnus. If Magnus goes and wins this game, which it looks to all eyes that he should, this will be one of those that we point to in the articles and say, wow.
That was a turnaround.
Wow. He's gotten this position in 5 minutes and 14 seconds. Okay, some increments as well. But he has just completely outplayed his opponent. And now knight d4, desperation.
I wanted to say, let's see how bad it is. Knight d4, attack the queen. So the idea is if you take my pawn, then I rescue myself. I don't allow checkmate in one with rook f8, but I do defend f7, and I do get out of dodge. So knight d4, probably we're going to see rook takes d4.
Oh, that knight's got to die. That knight cannot last another move.
And we're going to see bishop takes, because now we're threatening to take. So far, so good. And what do we got at the end of the day?
Take on h5 and a mating attack that looks vicious.
Is it?
It's mate in 2. Queen f7 is mate. So
we could also take on d5. Okay, you like take on h5. I'll defend against.
And now take on d5. And did we win back both pawns? Now we're actually up a pawn despite everything. We're ahead by a pawn, and everything in your position is collapsing. I mean, that's a pawn after your own heart, yes.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit worried about some counterspiel. Probably it's not enough, but what else is Fabi going to do if not for knight d4?
He's already played. It's all happened. D4. Rook d4, bishop d4, queen h5 has happened, and bishop e8 did happen as well. So we don't have rook e7 on the board yet.
We don't have rook e7. But we do have queen h5, though.
This is even material at the moment. Exposed king.
Queen c7
and he can win a pawn. Queen c7 played. And
Queen c7. Okay. By the way, alert, alert, alert. You know, that comes with a double
sneaky.
A double purpose, a dual.
Dirty rat.
All right, so I don't want to play.
Dirty rat move.
But couldn't I play queen h7 and knight takes e6? No, because then rook e6, and then your move, Yaz, right?
He just ignored the threat.
Whoa.
C takes d5. He said, you can crash in on g3 if you like. King h1, no more checks, and I'm going to mate you, or your position collapses. Oh, by the way, thanks for the G file. Oh, my goodness.
What a move.
A move. C takes d5, triple exclamation mark, giving an explosive queen g3. That is boss. I'm sorry. That's amazing.
Well, it's one of those annotations that Alexander Alekhine made in his Best Games collection. He shows a position, and his opponent, plays a move like queen c7 with this monster threat of queen takes g3, and Alekhine says, he goes through all the permutations, like how this move terrified him and everything. And then he says, well, what if I let my opponent, continue with this threat? And it wins the game. It's like, Go ahead, do what you want to do.
It's pure Aikido chess, by the way. Give the guy his move and then make him pay for it.
And the thing is that the more forcing line, instead of allowing queen takes g3, doesn't work, because suddenly the queen and the knight don't do defensive duty anymore. So if you were to try to play queen h7 check and knight takes e6, winning in exchange because there's pins, suddenly look at how both of those pieces disappeared from the defense, right?
Exactly.
And now we're actually...
And now queen g3 is too strong in the line. And Fabi has just swallowed his pride and said, rook e7, I can't go for queen g3. Maybe I'll get it later in the game, but he did drop a pawn, and rook e7 looks, I mean, that bishop on d4 is just stopping the mates. But is it changing anything if you took on e6 immediately, then
there's a bishop,
on e6, takes on e6 immediately. That looks good too. Why not?
That looks really good.
Queen g3 doesn't do anything, and Magnus is going right ahead. Got it. You want to play your check? It's not going to matter. I got all the same goodies, and now f6 is on the board. F6 trying to chase the knight. There's no check anymore on
what about
h7,
this?
But this queen check
g6 has been played.
And by the way, I can defend g3 by just retreating the knight now. I mean, there's
would you
no
want
more...
to? I so don't want to play knight f3, although it does do the job. You feel like
there's a knockout.
Playing such brutal chess so far that you want to go get the guy somehow, but now it may be time to just chill.
Queen h6 check, for instance, but we just came from there, right?
Yeah.
And then because then you can't play rook g7 because of e7 check.
Maybe it's time to be wise and just consolidate the position.
Let me show that. I can't play. What's that? Sorry.
Oh, if you played rook g7 instead of king g8, I do have the e7 check in the position, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's killer. That's a killer blow.
Hello.
Yep.
All right. Well, looks like we have to play a retreating move, knight f3, consolidate everything. Knight is hanging.
It's not just the retreating move. It's just like, man, that's a blow in itself. I mean, I agree with you. It'd be great to win the game spectacularly with knight h7 check and e7 check. But knight f3, you know, like if you look at it, you go, oh my word, it does everything. It defends the g3 pawn.
He spent a long time before he finally played it, by the way. He spent quite a long time.
He was reluctant. Oh, I understand.
He did not want to bring it back. But now Fabi has to guard the f6 pawn. So bishop c3 on the board. You would think the rook probably will go to c1 and pin and say, what are you doing with your pieces? Although that e6 pawn is going to, I can't believe that. Yeah, rook e3 you want to play, yes. Pretty much everything should do the job. He did play rook to c1. And rook takes on e6, played.
Knight d4 is possible.
Ooh, that's a nice tactical alert. Knight d4, taking advantage of the pin.
To take on f5?
Yeah, I do want to take on f5.
With the knight, yeah, the knight would be juicy. And look at that, you know, channeling Magnus Carlsen, our former U.S. champion there.
Wow.
Jen.
Wow.
Well, and if rook e5, I'm just going to take on f6 with check. So that'll be that.
Yeah.
You know what? We've just seen 35 moves that if Magnus played this in a classical game, you'd say, wow. You would actually go, wow, when you saw it.
That was a good classical game.
That was a nice game. He's done this in 9 minutes. And he's just making Fabi look bad. We're not talking about the number 50th player in the world, 50th. We're not talking about a number 30 player. We're not talking about the number 10 player. We're talking about the number 2 player in the world. And he is making this just look so easy. Effortless. Amazing.
And look at this, he's thrown in a check on h6 because you can't play queen g7. And now he's just played queen e3 to just pick up. But what about, what happens? Bishop d4, there's queen e8 check in between move.
Oh, that's just resigns.
And there it is.
No point.
He's resigned. Wow. The knight is covering any square that you might try to touch to connect with the bishop. What a performance by Magnus. Game 3.
You were right, Jen. Game 3.
There's something about game 3.
Kudos.
You know, they're warmed up, but they're not too tired. Not that I back that up with any data analysis. It just always feels that way. I'm going to have to go check the data on it as well.
Commentator's intuition.
I want you to come with me to Vegas, Jen. I like your intuition.
Man, that was special.
And here in the finals, we've got the current situation, right?
2 points for Magnus Carlsen with Fabiano Caruana on 1 point. So beautiful game for Magnus, but what really matters are those clutch games later today. Remember that if Fabi can strike back in one of them, he will leapfrog Magnus Carlsen's score.
Wow.
By the way, we see here the clutch bonus to date we saw on that graphic. Magnus with 10 grand, but the leader was Wesley So with 12. So Wesley took home the semifinal prize of 25,000 plus another 12. That puts him at 37,000. So whoever loses this match will take 35, but also already has money as well. So they will have passed Wesley no matter what. And if we just take a look at the money, there's a lot of money at stake in this match because of the semifinals in the clutch money from the quarters, which was one game sent some money forward, and 2 of them in the semifinals, which added together through 20,000 sprinkled on 2 games, clutch games 11 and 12. So instead of them being worth 3,000, tomorrow they will be worth 13,000 each. If you add that up and get 26, as we mentioned before, we had another 4 for games 5 and 6 today. That's $30,000 extra added to the pool for these players. But let me tell you, that might be sparkling, but nothing was as sparkling as what we just saw. You saw a 10-minute game played with style, with precision. Maybe precision might be too much. I'd have to check the engines to say whether or not it was the top precision. But you saw it play like it got the knife out and he said, sit here. I'm going to do it to you over here. I'm going to do it on the queen side. I'm going to put a knight on e4. Then I'm going to sack on f5. Then I'm going to sack on c4. I'm going to break into your position. I'm going to let you take on g3 if you want to. And then I'm going to come back and win your bishop. It was just like style points. It was like a basketball player dribbling between the legs, behind the back, up, forward, backward, broke your ankles, drove to the hoop, easy layup. Who am I playing against? I mean, it was just so artistic and at the same time brutal. Amazing play by Magnus in game 3.
For me, the remarkable, I'll just show the position after move 22. I thought that if anybody had an edge, it was actually Fabi right here. I preferred Fabi's pawn structure. I like the fact that he has this minority attack. And after a move like bishop c2, queen c7, I'm thinking the game's going to be more of a draw than anything because of the opposite color bishop effect. But this was actually one move turned the tables. Instead of queen c, knight e4.
It was the move b5, yeah, b5.
Yeah, it was b5. That was he should have played queen c7 before the move b5. But it was like knight e4. And then even this position looks fairly innocent. And it was just like over before you knew it. Maybe this was also a culprit of a move.
B4, yeah, allowing us to play on both sides of the board with bishop a4. And now you have to watch out for c4 and f5. So instructive that b4 seems like an active move, but it actually gave more activity to white than black. And, you know, it's the flip side of got to give squares to get squares.
Exactly.
You try to get some squares and you give away too many.
I'm telling you, this reminds me of Aikido over and over. You make an aggressive move. This is what... Now, I did a DVD on this with Chess Base called The Secret to Chess. You make an aggressive move, but there are drawbacks to every move you make. And you have to be mindful of what the drawback is. And in that game, the b5 move, we can c6. Then the b4 move, we can the long diagonal. I mean, and the top players are like, I see your weakness. I see it again. I exploit it again. And Magnus just showed what happens when you think you're being aggressive, only to find out that those aggressive moves are creating problems in your own position. That was a masterpiece. If Magnus wins this, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, if Magnus wins this match, this game 3 is the one everybody's going to publish. Or at least everybody who's writing already know they've got a game. There's a lot of great writers out there. We could quote, I know one John Henderson, who's I get his articles in my inbox, the Scotsman. I already know he's thinking, forget the other 3 games. Let me start annotating now.
Game 2, from this match, yeah.
The other 2 games, yeah. The other 3 games finishing is what I'm saying.
Shout out, of course, to Tatev Abrahamian. By the way, she does clutch chess highlights after the games are over on YouTube, and I agree with you, Maurice. I think she's going to focus more on that game than the first 2.
Yeah.
No, I mean, even the next 3. I don't think how can you get a better game than we just saw? We get highlight games. This game it had it all for just the execution. Give me that.
Yeah.
Give me that. Take him down. Take him down. Beautiful game by Magnus.
And
by the way,
game 10, one of the beautiful things about it is that a player like Fabiano can make that kind of strategic oversight. Whereas in a classical game, I don't think he would play b4 because of this bishop a4 idea. He'd notice it and he would avoid it. So in terms of openings and calculating, sometimes they seem almost the same in certain game 10s as they would in classical. But those types of judgment calls can eclipse their vision, yes. Easily, no question about it. And in this time control, look, nobody's going to play perfectly.
Magnus, hear that? Nobody's going to play perfectly.
Yeah, right.
I mean, his game really, really close. And they're
so
off.
Good.
Game 4.
That was
this
so
is
good,
the penultimate game
Amazing.
before the clutch game.
And we switched to the Rossalimo as well. Rather, Magnus switched to the Sicilian from double king pawn, and now we've got a Rossalimo, which we saw so much of in their World Championship match
in London. Yep,
we've already not mimicked the World Championship, as that one ended in 12 draws. This one won't, thank goodness. We have seen 1 victory so far, and that was in game 3, as you predicted, Jennifer. And wow, this match is really showing us some stuff already. We don't want Fabi to just get run over, though. If Magnus keeps playing like that, you're going to, okay, what am I going to do? This guy's too good. Let's hope that Fabi can find some tooth in the play.
Well, here's something fun that he's trying. H4 in this position.
I'm trying to recall it. I believe it was from a Vicon Zee here in Holland, the Tata Steel Masters competition between Anish Giri, Holland's #1 player, was white, Magnus Carlsen was black, and they played a position that featured this setup, and Magnus won a remarkable game. Certainly that would have been familiar.
Are you referring to Vicon Zee? Vicon Zee or Zagreb, where Magnus played D6?
Yeah. Okay.
Remember that? He played D6, the completely anti-positional D6, and somehow maybe he took an H-pawn as well. And then he ran his H-pawn down the board and beat Anish in like 23 moves.
Exactly. That's the game. I missed. It was in the Grand Chess Tour.
Right.
The Zagreb. Where you were.
Yes, I was there.
Remember it so
I was there.
well.
I watched it. We were stunned when Magnus played D6. You said, he could do that?
Wow.
And he said, yeah, I thought I can mix it up, not go down the guy's prep. And he turned out to just play some vicious chess with the black pieces. And we've seen that from Magnus. Magnus says, I play the Sicilian, then I start attacking them. And it just works.
Now, this is going to be a monstrously difficult task for all of those brilliant chess writers you mentioned, Maurice, to annotate. How do you annotate a game where white castles short? Okay, fair enough. White castle short. That's what he did. Okay. And then plays h4, h5. Moves his h-pawn up the board on the same flank that he castled his king. He purposefully weakens his pawn shield.
And then, are you going to finish?
No, that's
And then he plays knight h2 with none of the other pieces developed on the other side of the board. There's a knight sitting on b1, a bishop on c1, and this knight says, I'm going to an inferior square, h2, not towards the center. I'm like trying to hide my knight. Bishop g4, of course, was a problem after the last move, d6. We understand that. But if you looked at this, if you saw knight h2, if you saw this position with white, and your student who was about 1800 was playing, you'd say, are you having a bad day?
Dude, anything I teach you ever.
Yeah. Your 1800 student, you would say, you never play like this. What are you doing today?
Right.
And
look at this.
Yeah, and you know, it's so funny, guys, because one of the things I was about to make a big speech about was that how I feel like game 10 with the best players in the world is so good for students because they actually make mistakes. So you can kind of see it, just like, you know, how some people say, look at the classics, because, you know, they're great games, beautiful, but they didn't have as many high shoulders to stand on because there wasn't a Gary Kasparov or an Alekhine or a Steinitz yet. So go way, way back, and those games are really instructive. You could say that same thing about game 10
you're saying
of
they're
the best players in the world.
You're saying they're making mistakes. That's a judgment, Jen. I'm not saying they're making mistakes because I don't.
Oh no, I'm just saying that.
I'm
not saying in this position that these H4 moves are mistakes, but I think for beginners, you know, it's a little bit much to try to understand when you're trying to explain the classic principles of development, right?
Right.
They don't.
That's what I'm saying. Is if you've been, you know, drilled. Let's put it that way. Drilled at the classics. You know, bring your pieces out. Make sure everybody's developed. Keep your king protected. Don't move the same piece twice.
Exactly.
And you've been drilled in these principles. We're coaches of principles, right? And we adhere to them dearly. And all the principles are getting broken in this game.
Yeah. But Alpha Zero apparently loves to play H4, H5, H6. And we know a lot of the top players are training with Leela, which is the open source version of this type of AI. And I see H4, H5, H6 even more often because of that influence.
Much more often. It's now just in everybody's repertoire. And it's almost like you have to say, yes, you want to develop your pieces. Yes, bring everything to the center, castle early. And oh, by the way, push your H pawn within the first 6 or 7 moves. What?
I like that. Develop your pieces, castle early, and play H4.
And play H4. Play H4, H5. Just throw it in there, whatever, whenever you want to. That's what we're seeing. But that move by Magnus, knight to G8, and now Fabi is starting to show some moves that you might wonder, how did this position happen? 15 moves in, and you say, reconstruct this opening, please. And you'd be like, what? And now Magnus, instead of playing H6, plays H5.
Yeah, that's surprising. I guess he didn't want Fabi to park his queen on H5.
For sure. I think the queen coming to H5 would have really been injurious. First of all, because it just means you're not castling short. And the bishop being on G5 means you're not castling long. So H5, I felt, was required. Magnus preparing to play F6 so that actually his king, weirdly enough, is heading queenside.
Weirdly is the right term, because now you have to also argue there's no security over on that side with your pawn shield completely fractured. We saw him have that same problem in the game first game yesterday against Aronian, where he had that horrible pawn structure on that queen side. You're laughing, Yas, because you remember
Scandinavia.
The pawn structure was so terrible. And you know what happened? He traded queens, he lost material, then he sacked an exchange, and then he proceeded to outplay Levon after Levon realized I can't get it going. And then Magnus won the game. So add weak kings to your list as well. It's okay if your king's weak and your pawns are
to put the proper reconstruction. First, Magnus sacrificed one pawn, then Magnus sacrificed a second pawn, and then he sacrificed an exchange. So he was an exchange and 2 pawns down, and that was probably the moment when he had his best position of the game.
and he actually went on to win that game.
And he went on to win the game.
By the way.
Yeah, that was a crazy game. But this one, at least he's got something going on for himself.
He's got a lot going on.
This file action, you know, I mean, H file.
You've got one pawn shield, and that's, you know, okay. I mean, black starts to think, well, maybe I can turn into an attacker. I don't have to just sit back and defend my weak pawns on F6 or C5 or C6, but I can turn the game around.
There it is, by the way. Yeah. Immediate bishop to H6 has been played.
Whoa. What about rook takes F6?
Okay.
Interesting idea. Actually, Fabi just said none of the above. He's not interested in that F6 pawn. He parked his knight on C4. Yes. That was a quick declining of pawns.
Well, doubtlessly he saw this possibility when he played the move Queen E1 earlier. I'm still I like what Maurice was saying. Just a second. Why not? Is there something obvious we're missing? Is it H4? I mean,
I don't think so. I think his just intuition told him that he didn't want to open up extra lines and he didn't want to think about it for 3 minutes. I think it was a practical decision to say, no gracias. But
no gracias. Okay.
Was it the right decision? At least it was a fast one.
Hey, Bishop F4 is on the board. It
was a fast one.
Magnus said, good, and now you're not getting a second chance. Bishop F4, now the pawn is shielded. Do you want to play G3 and cause some slight weakness in your position, especially since I can play Bishop G5? You will not see this pawn twice. And Fabi said, let's play B4. We're seeing a street brawl in this game. The way this game has gone, these guys are classical principles. I was going to say, I'm not going to say what I was going to say. They're just throwing them out the window. Wow. This is just straight drop them. Play, move, play, move, play, move. See what it looks like. Think about classical principles later, maybe. They're breaking all of them and playing just wild chess.
So I'm starting to like Black's position, but here's the thing. What about my lady, my queen on C7? How do I get her into the attack, guys? Because my attack is always, because we see Fabi is trying to solve that problem by playing B4 and open up, the B4 square for the queen, maybe A5 if your queen ever strays. But so you play Rook G8, but how are you actually going to threaten stuff without the queen in the game?
Good question. Very good question. But it's going to take some time anyway.
Is it going to take some time? I don't think so. I think the queen's coming to G7, and I think Fabi's in a lot of trouble.
Where do you put your knight, though? Because then your F6 pawn hangs, right? Which also blocks the G7 square. Wait.
So what?
You said, so what about a pawn?
No, I'm saying I'm checkmating you down the G file, Jen.
What?
Just a second. So let's say I play Rook G6,
Rook G6,
G8, and Queen G7.
Well, knight moves and then Queen G7.
Yeah. You don't get to jump over the knight. But you're going to put the knight on F8 or something, yes?
No, something's going to resolve itself on C5, right?
I see what you're saying. Okay, and then you'll play knight takes C5. Yeah, well, maybe though, but maybe Fabi will not take on C5.
Do not take on C5. That would be ridiculous.
Yeah, he's not going to want to give you that key tempo.
That's crazy. He's played knight to F3. What I'm going to see against your threat, Yaz, is I'm going to play Queen E2 and Rook G1 when you get there. So
I'm getting there fast. First of all, he played B4, did white, Fabi to get at Black's king, right?
Yep.
Now, Queen E2 and B4, I don't see the connection.
No. When you get there, so I needed another move. The moment you threaten the first threat, I'm going to put my rook on G1. And when you make the second, then I'm going to put my queen on E2. So I needed to move a third piece because those two were stable. Maybe a move like rook to B1 or rook to D1. Rook to D1 doesn't look like it does anything. Rook to B1 maybe would have been my choice on the previous move, not this one. You got your rook on G4 because I moved my knight off of that square H2. So maybe you should have played.
Well, that's the game position, though, Maurice.
No, that's what I'm saying. When you had the position earlier, he played knight F3. You're right. Now with the knight on F3, the rook can go to G4, and he has taken on B4 himself.
Wants to draw the queen away from.
Right. So the queen I wanted to be on E2 is now gone. But maybe he thinks he's getting his own play. Queen takes B4 by Fabi, and he's going to be able to play rook B1, and maybe shift the queen somewhere.
Rook B. Var is whispering in my ear, how about Bishop E3? How do you like them apples?
Highly defensive move. I'll put a rook on B1 again.
Okay.
And now I want to
I think what Var really wants to do is stick a knight on C5, and the knight, kind of like an octopus-like style, defends a lot of squares around Black's king. And Bishop E3, a shout out to Var. The
Bishop
man
E3,
has...
rook B1, and you're going to do what after rook? You're going to play knight C5?
Okay, I was actually worried about this pawn, but I'm going to play rook g4 first.
Okay, so if I move my queen, okay, what if I threaten it then? Queen a3, let's play. Oh, queen a3 hits your bishop. Hello. You can't put your knight there. And now you're asking for tactics. c5 doesn't do anything. c5, you can, oh, first of all, I could trade queens as well. See, with queen a, I don't want to trade queens. Forget about that. Although f6 is hanging. Isn't f6 hanging? If I play c5 right now, for example, and I take on f6, I might be running into a tactic somewhere, but I'm hitting your d8, I'm hitting e5, you're hitting e4.
Magnus is really sinking into a deep think here, guys.
Hey, this one.
He's been thinking for, I think,
we do have bishop e3 on the board, right?
Yes.
Bishop e3, rook a, b1, and this is where Magnus is starting to think.
Because queen a3 could be a threat. And c5 and the f6 pawn and tactics are bubbling. I think the last couple of moves, Magnus kind of blinked with bishop e3. Maybe it's the best move, but it's not consistent with what you were talking about, Yaz, the energy in the play. And as I'm speaking, he decided to play the move a5.
That's shocking. Look at those weaknesses that are being created. I mean, now if we play queen a3, like you suggested, Maurice,
there's bishop c5 as a rejoinder.
Yeah, queen a3 doesn't do the same thing anymore.
Right?
Yeah, tempo. Because you're attacking the bishop. The bishop gets this retreat with tempo, which I don't think. A5, by the way, even in a classical game,
nobody.
That would be like number 4 on my list of. I would bishop b6. I would.
By the way, queen e7 was Fabi's choice. So he sunk his queen into the position, threatening now bishop to f6.
I'm telling you, when I say street brawl, this feels like a street brawl right now. They're just like, I'm just throwing moves, unexpected shots, dropping on the board. You want to play cohesive chess, Yaz. Bring the rook to g4, double rooks, put the queen on the g line.
Everything nice.
Whatever. Right? Let me put a loose bishop on e3. Let me drop a pawn on a5. I don't care. Bobby says, I'm going to play b4. Yes, my pawn structure looks terrible now. I don't have a single good pawn on the board. But you know what? We're playing chess. This is just incredible. And again, Fabi, with that big time edge, 549 to 142, 4 minutes. The last time he had this advantage, he played it slow and let Magnus come back. Don't worry about it now. Just play intuitively. He's played queen h7. Not sure if it's the best move.
After rook on d to e8.
After rook d to e8. Not sure if it's the best move, but he just got to keep making moves. The queen can get to f5. I think that was the point of that move. Get the queen to f5. I don't think he wants to take the h-pawn. That pawn
look
looks,
at this. Yeah, I love
unappetizing.
That queen f5 check move. And I love the way that Fabi is just playing so quickly. He's got a 4-minute edge on Magnus.
And a knight to c5, allowing queen f5 with check. But he does have queen d7, thank goodness.
So queen h5 is not a move I want to play with your rook showing up on h8.
No,
that was not in the cards. Bishop g5, it's probably like winning right away for black.
If he takes on h5, every coach he has ever had will say, what is wrong with you? Like, are you mad? Like, no way he's taking that pawn. The bishop's already sitting on e3, stopping him from going to the g1 square. You're not getting away from this pin.
What about you, Yaz? You like that pawn? Or is that a pickle fit or a cookie?
No.
But he has captured the f6 pawn. He plays bishop takes on f6, and queens are off the board. What do we have here?
I'm calling it quits. I'm not taking that pawn on h5, that's for sure. We've just seen a queen trade, everybody, after bishop takes f6.
We've got a pawn, but the thing is, you've got those doubled c pawns, and so right now it's all about the passed f pawn versus the passed e pawn. Which one is faster? Which one's more powerful?
Are we talking about the strength of pawns? This is so chaotic. By the way, Magnus now down under a minute. Fabi with 518. Magnus will have to right the ship. He's played knight back to d7. I think Fabi will be happy to see a move like that on the board. Just back your pieces up. Stay away from the cookie jar. I want you on the other side. This, and he defends his pawn. Fabi now should just just retreat the bishop. Just back it up.
We have a huge difference in time. 5 minutes to 1 minute.
That's what it's about.
I mean, and
I know. Wow, what a strategy by Fabi.
Yeah.
I'm impressed by that strategy because it's pretty hard after losing a game like the brilliant game that Magnus played in game 3, not to be a little bit intimidated and slow down. So this is some really great confidence and fortitude by Fabi.
47 seconds for Magnus.
We just saw the move rook E1.
The rook E1, and the bishops have come off.
Not 100% sure I like that decision by Fabi, but because we're about to see E4 now.
I don't know.
Yeah.
No. Wow. Okay. That's a surprising move. Okay. What's the intention after, say, rook E4? What is that knight doing here?
He played rook F8 going after the pawn on F5, but it looks like you just conceded the G5 square. Again, one of those attacking moves that create weaknesses as well. You can play knight to G5. You can't quite play knight E6 as yet, but in the meantime, what does black do? Down a pawn. That looks like a move that shuts down the initiative. I'm not even sure what his next move should be as black.
Yeah, I mean, knight G5, perfectly legit move, all right. I was thinking of the other way, knight H4 to go to G6 to go after the E pawn, but knight G5
too.
And he's got time
but he has to do something. Keep the edge. You got 406. Get into flow, Fabi. You might want to think now, but you're going to have to get into flow because 358 is the edge you want on Magnus. If you're up a pawn,
keep that.
You want him
edge
to feel the pressure of the clock. Blunders do occur. When he gets under 30 seconds, you could do that. But right now, Fabi, in a deep thing, if he doesn't move by 3 minutes, guys, I'm going to be screaming. And I don't want to. Okay, he moved. He played knight back to E1.
Didn't consider that one.
He's trying to go to D3.
What's up with that?
And C5. He's looking at D3 and C5.
I'm not feeling
No me gusta.
You're not feeling it, okay.
I'm thinking that as black, I want to play E4, which will arrest the knight. So I'm thinking knight. I was thinking knight F6, kick the rook back, play E4, and smother the knight.
Yeah,
but he didn't do that. Knight H6.
Yeah.
I mean, Magnus with really no time, 37 seconds, 5
F6,
second
knight back
increment.
to G4.
Okay, what if we go? If we were to go one step forward,
trying to keep an eye on the pawn on F6, but is he defending enough? Oh, Fabi has rook F5 coming as well. Rook F5.
Be careful. There's a back rank mate. I'm thinking rook E6 here. No, he played knight takes F6. Sorry.
Knight F6.
So knight takes F6. We expect rook takes E5, and then after rook takes E5, knight takes E5. The C6 pawn is tender.
Oh, no, you can't play rook E5. Rook E5 is so good.
No, Jen, I've never tried.
Knight G4 you'll play. Rook takes E5, knight G4.
Yeah, knight G4.
Which is on the board at the moment.
Okay.
And there's a rook hanging.
On F1, there's a rook.
So there's no time to play rook C5 or rook A5 because the rook is hanging on F1. So you have to play
rook
F8, rook F8, and then you
rook E. Why don't you play king G1?
And then there's a mate threat, so that stops us from taking anything. Nice defense by Magnus.
But why do you play king G1 instead of rook all the way back? Seems so defensive.
His rook was hanging.
Oh, my bad. Okay, thought corrected. Yes, his rook was hanging. So rook back. Rook D8, and now what's the edge? 4 to 3 looks.
It's a pawn. It's an extra pawn for white, but it's a half pawn because of the double pawns. Rook E4, stopping the intended rook D4, king G7, king C7, king C7 on the board.
So he can play G3, king G2, get his king out of this little.
Fabi's better. Fabi's better. He's a pawn up.
King G2. He's a pawn up. Rook to F5.
Is there something to be said for warming up the board with our king?
Don't let knight F2 check happen, though, Yaz. I don't want to trade knights. Trading knights, he might get some activity with his rook. That boring rook and pawn ending. Guys like you might win, but I don't trust that endgame. He played knight F4 instead.
Okay. I rather like the knight on d3 for the reasons that it did keep the black king honest.
King d6, is this dropping a pawn? I mean, the h5 pawn was under threat. Why can't he just take it? Rook f2 can be met by king g1.
Nice. Knight
He's not a
h5,
free
rook
pawn?
e5, rook e4, and you've got 4
That's
pawns
a
to 2.
very
Healthy.
good pawn.
I mean,
Very healthy.
Bobby's looking around for the trick.
Knight
This is
h5,
what he needed.
What about knight h5, knight f2?
Knight
Knight f2, rook
h5,
h4 at the
knight
worst.
f2.
Just move the rook because
Rook f4 at the worst, rook h4 at the worst, and he's done it.
He's done it.
He's done it. He's now won a very important pawn. Magnus missed this, and this is what I'm talking about. Keep the edge on him on the clock. He can make mistakes when the pressure is high. He's got to stay with you. He's got only 25 seconds left now, and Fabi up a clean pawn in what should be a technically winning rook and pawn ending.
Well, Magnus now getting desperate. He's looking for some counterspiel over here, but anything like c3, probably even a3 deserves attention as well. And he's played it. Just keep that king, keep the king at bay, and now move the rook and play g4, g5, and
beautiful.
Go, go, baby.
Winning. This is his. The only thing is a rook landing on d2 or b2. But while that G pawn is healthily racing down the board, there it goes. Rook trying to back up, but make him feel the pressure of this pawn. And there's the rook headed to the square. Now, can you start pushing? Why not play G5?
Absolutely. That just wins the game.
There it is. It's on the board, but so what? G6, and you're pushing the pony home. This is winning, guys. King f4.
Easy win. Easy win. It's not even close.
He could also play rook e3, no? Doesn't rook e3 take? He's resigned. That's it. Fabi with the comeback.
Free clutch comeback. And we are tied up, guys, with a thrilling match just in time for our clutch game.
Amazing.
Wow.
We're being
feted
right now. 2800s punching at each other. Incredible.
I was a little bit worried about this game. I thought that things were going wrongly for Fabi, just about these parts right here. I thought that Magnus was going to play rook g4, rook g8, that Magnus was going to crash through on the king side, but Magnus kind of got distracted. This white queen did some funky things.
A5 was a strange move.
H7 to F5. And somehow, what can I say? Fabi came out on top. My predictions looking good.
Remarkable practical play by the top American player, the #2 player in the world. Who does that against Magnus? Magnus is used to people getting to the same time as him because they're like, well, if Magnus thinking, I probably should think. Fabi said, not so much. I'll keep my 4-minute edge and swindle you in the end. And that's just what he did. And now the score is 2-2. Remember, and stakes are about to get higher. 2K instant win if you win a game, and 2 points for the win. And remember I said that I picked Magnus because I knew that if they got down to 20 seconds each, Magnus was going to win those games. And I love that Fabi seems to be channeling that same thought. I'm not going to let that happen.
No.
That's the way for him to win this match. Don't get 20 seconds versus 20 seconds.
Force the guy's time situation as well. He may be Magnus Carlsen, but when the clock is ticking down, you feel that pressure. And he played that move, I think it was rook f5, allowing knight takes h5, winning a pawn, a crucial pawn in the position, and that rook and pawn ending was winning. This is what Fabi has to do. Any edge you get, it stops being the objectivity on the board and actually about the clock combined with the position on the board, and you've got to keep that pace. Even great champions make mistakes when the time is ticking down.
Yeah, that's a remarkable oversight, what you mentioned, Maurice, allowing that knight h5, because knight f4, does have that concrete threat. And, Magnus, with very little time on his clock, overlooked that the knight takes on h5, followed by rook takes g4.
So actually he played king d6, not rook f5. He had already played, so knight f4 with the threat, and he missed it. Protect your squares, folks.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back for those clutch games. Don't go anywhere.
Be surprised. Be intrigued. Be delighted. The World Chess Hall of Fame in St. Louis is nothing you'd expect and everything you love. 3 galleries highlight the history, culture, and creativity behind the game. Explore chess in ways you never imagined. It's a one-of-a-kind cultural institution where rare artifacts and world-class art play together. The World Chess Hall of Fame. Mind, art, experience.
Can you hear it? It's the sound of hope and health and strength. It's the sound of compassion, of open doors, where people and machines are in tune and miracles occur. It's the sound of personalized healthcare and active communities. It sounds like life, and it's what you hear when you really listen.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Clutch Chess. I'm Jen Shahade here with Yaz and Maurice, and we've got a tied match, and we are going into Clutch. This is what we do it for.
Absolutely, Jen. I mean, we couldn't have hoped for a better, more exciting match. Number 1 versus number 2 in the world. And they both got a measure of one another as they prepare for Game 5, a clutch game worth 2 points in the match. There you see it, as well as a little bonus money of $2,000. But those clutch points have been so vital throughout all of the matches, as they're important for the tie breaks as well. Maurice, if you could explain that to our audience.
Yes, because, well, they're tied at the end of regulation. That is, they play the 12 games. The very first tie break is clutch points.
Right.
And so if any games you want to win, I'll take the clutch games. You can win as many of those single games as you want. I'll just take all the clutch games so that when we're tied at the end, arbiter says, excuse me, those clutch points count more than all the other games. So they know the importance of these two. And given how equal they are in ability, so far we've seen it, 4 games deadlocked. Man, those clutch games are going to loom large. And very important, by the way, one thing you don't want to do is get that deficit to be too great so that you feel like you have a long uphill climb on the next day. I don't think we've seen this kind of very close match. I don't remember any matches tied 2-2. Do you? I mean, after 2 games.
I don't remember
I don't recall a single. I always remember people having a lead by now, someone.
Yeah.
In all
Magnus,
and we're
sorry, guys. Magnus playing everything. He played C4, the English. He played D4 and a London. Now he's playing E4 to be met by Fabi's vaunted Petrov, or Russian defense. Mm-hmm. And look at them go. They don't even, both players at 10 minutes and 40 seconds. My goodness.
They have prepared for each other. They know each other well. And Absolutely. Magnus knows exactly what Fabi likes to play. So no surprise here that he's prepared this one for a world championship match, played a Grand Chess Tour, you name it. He knows Fabi's going to play this sooner or later, and he had to be ready for it. So they're playing very quickly. At the moment, we see opposite side castling, which usually features dynamic play.
For those of you who aren't used to this type of opening, one of the ideas is that White has this fractured pawns on the queen side, but he actually likes that because it makes his king super safe. It's 4 in the shield instead of 3. It also opens up that D file. So that's why White plays this position. On the other hand, there always is a possibility for a lot of pieces to come off on the chopping block. So it has some drawish potentials, but let's see which way it goes.
Yeah, that open E file definitely allows for some draw, but
Magnus, the first player to go into the tank.
White usually gets a little something, and then Magnus, after deep thought, came up with the deep A3.
I think it was Alejandro Ramirez was in our studio and talking about his preparation that he did with Fabiano for the World Championship match. And he gave us some real insights to when you want to play B3, King B2 as White, or when you want to play A3 and King B1. And the subtleties were fantastic and very, very deep. But anyway, Magnus was the first player who actually paused. Both players had been at 10 minutes, 40 seconds. Magnus took an entire 1 minute to play A3.
Can we point out that Fabi has the thematic bishop takes on F3, which you might perceive as a threat until you look and you say, that G file just opened up and I gave him the 2 bishops. This is imbalanced. I don't see how I get to an endgame to show that my superiority exists in terms of pawn structure. I might get killed before the endgame shows up. As Tarish used to say, before the endgame, the gods have placed the middle game. And you have to be very careful when you create double pawns. I know a lot of students hear that. Double pawns is a weakness. Double pawns, that's a weakness. Let's go for it. Yes, but when pawns double, files open. Remember that. And you have to be very careful. And Fabi has said, I don't want any parts of that exchange. And he has instead gone for a more thematic exchange, bishop to F5, looking to get rid of the light square bishop. Magnus quickly pounced with knight to D4, looking now at that F5 square as a tender square in Black's position. Not a lot of pieces will follow as yet, will stream into the position, but he's going to have to be mindful of it, does Black. Knight F5 is definitely a concrete threat.
He has traded bishops. And I've always attributed that quote, that particular quote, to Michael Tull, because at the end, Tull is supposed to have said, and before the end game, the gods have placed the middle game. And I thank those gods. Michael Tull loved middle game positions. But,
it's funny, I've never heard that quote from him, but it seems to me he's extending. I think he's extending the Tarish quote. But we could check. We can check to see who. I think Tarish came first with the first part, and Tull added the funny ending there, as you mentioned.
Right.
Never heard that one.
D5.
Wow,
again, a very heavyweight pitched, opening battle. I wouldn't have thought that was the move here. That knight coming to F5 really is very frightening. I'm being told by VAR that, in fact, the move knight D5 is a novelty. So, certainly this has been on his board, Fabi's home prep board.
But maybe not recently. No. Because we know when the opening is completely fresh, he just blitzes it out. So I feel like this might be maybe in its files from London.
Okay, let's say I do something pretty normal, natural. I defend my piece. I go Queen G3. I don't know if it's a threat, but I am looking at a possibility of Bishop H6. What's the natural follow-up for Fabi?
You mean, why did he put the knight on D5 in the first place? You kind of assume he was trying to trade off pieces, right?
All right.
But then I see what you're saying, that when you get your queen posted up into G5, it's a really nice square, isn't it?
It does support knight D4 to F5. I mean, I've always hated when I'm castled and I've got that pawn shield in front of my king like Black does. I always hated it when my opponents could put a knight on F5, and I worked hard to prevent that. So
let's go along with the line and just play rook takes E1 in that line, rook takes E1, rook takes E1, rook E8, thinking that you don't quite have time to play knight F5 because if you, for instance, take on E8 and play knight F5, well, guess what I do? I finally found a crack in your beautiful pawn structure there.
It's not just the knight F5 move. The knight on D5 was hanging. You were sacrificing a piece, Jen, in that line. Because knight F5 wasn't necessary. You just play queen takes D5.
Right. Yeah, so that does look like
you were sacking a piece. Your knight is hanging on the D5 square, and the move rook E8 says, go right ahead. Snack on it if you want to. You're going to get mated thanks to your knight sitting on D4. So Magnus noticed this and played bishop takes on E7. Now knight takes on E7, stopping a knight from appearing on F5. There's a smidgen of an edge here for white, but Black has zero weaknesses in his position at the moment.
Nothing to target.
Nothing really clear to target. This is This is looking close to equal. And why is it that Fabi's always up on the clock?
What about rook e4, just with the ideas of maybe swinging to h4 if the conditions are right, but mostly just playing rook e1 and trying to construct some kind of Alekhine's gun?
Absolutely.
We're trading off
like
rooks.
that.
We're trading off rooks so fast. Your rook shows up in that square.
You're just going to play knight g6, you mean?
Actually, I do have d5 that you're going to have to look at. Magnus says Alpha Zero / Layla did and played h4.
Layla? I like it. Layla?
You know, it's like one of those. It was like one of those things where you say, "What took you so long to play h4? We thought you were supposed to play within like the first 10 moves."
It's about time. It's about time.
Saw the h4 move on the board, and the beauty of this move is if you play knight g6, think you have some security on that square. Well, thanks for the invitation. h5 shows up.
Love that.
And then anywhere your knight moves, my queen, the white queen will shift to some good-looking square. G3 looks nice, or maybe f5. There'll be options in that position. So, and that knight on this, before I could even finish speaking,
so you
just literally invited his opponent to play h5 anyway with this move knight g6. We were saying this is not a great move, and Fabi has put the knight on g6 anyway.
And is there a way, I'm trying to figure out a way that I can like time it so I attack your knight on d4 and you can't play queen g3 because of knight e2, but it doesn't seem like the timing is working. Like knight g6, just play h5, right? And I don't think I have time to play knight f4. So I mean, if knight f4, don't you just have queen g3 or queen g3? There's knight h5, queen f3. Sorry, yeah. We don't want to give up that pawn.
Knight e5 on the board. Yeah. I was complaining about this move because I thought queen g3 would get the job done. It seems he has a plan. Maybe queen g4 would be a move. Is that a smart? Oh, there's a knight b5.
Rook e5. There's a rook e5. Queen takes g3. Rook takes e8 check. Right. So you don't have time to play queen g4.
You're right. I don't have queen g4. So queen g3 threatens h6. Do you have to play h6 yourself? Okay, that might be possible. Queen g3, play h6 and say, what is your next move? Looking to double. Queen g3 played. And again, Fabi's up 2.5 minutes on the clock.
Wow.
Every single game. Wow. I think it's at least 3 games we have said Fabi up big on the clock. Game 1, game 3
was the most that they had equal time. But every other game, you're right. It seems to me like Fabi is the one who's really keeping an incredible pace.
95. Rook e4 on the board now, of course, looking to get his rooks doubled on the E line, although I'm not really sure the force of that because it looks like it will just be chopping blocks. Oh, there's a knight at 5 at the end. But wait, if the knight moves, there's, let's say, knight c4 or knight c6 even.
Fabi is really thinking this one over because, for example, if you move knight c4, we go rook g4, and let's say you defended this, you have to look at the consequences of a move like knight f5. These types of sacrifices can be dangerous. Probably they're okay.
Probably not now. Probably not now. You're just leading with the 2 pieces. But he does have knight c6. Knight c4 looks dangerous, like I'm falling into a tactic of some kind. Knight c6 looks like it makes more sense. And it's on the board. Knight c6. And now it doesn't look as though Magnus is going, well, this was what I was worried about. I was saying double rooks and then trade everything off. I still don't have knight f5 because of queen e1 mate. Look at that. It still doesn't work. Oh, no, but I can play knight f5 first. That's it. This one is mate. But if you try to do it like this, the other way, he's played rook g4 immediately. But yes, if you don't mind, if you trade here and rook e8, now knight f5, and you're getting toasted because you can't touch that knight, and nice mate is on g7, and end of story. No,
that's a good geometry. That shows the importance of the knight and breaking through straight lines. I love it.
Mm-hmm. And he did play after the move knight c6, rook g4. likely he thought that rook e1 would be met by knight takes d4 and just a lot of trades.
Yeah, that looks even. That's even for sure. Okay, so f6 is forced. Don't play f5 because I take knight takes f. Well, yeah. Why would you give up 3 pawns when you can just play f6? f5 is very forcing, allowing knight takes f5, rook takes, and then rook takes c7. That's a lot to do. Well, there's a mate threat on g7 and also a threat to the b pawn and the d pawn. So, yeah, don't play f5. f5 is mindless. But what else can he play except f6? Like, why are you sitting here?
I know, exactly. I always wondered about that. You know, my favorites, maybe you guys have similar feelings, is I play queen takes queen, check. There's only one move in the position. It's forced, it's legal. That's king recaptures queen. And I just love it when my opponents stop there and think.
Yeah.
Dude, what on earth are you thinking about? There's no choice. Rook g4 strikes me as one of those moments.
f6 is forced. Fabi has dropped below Magnus's time thinking about a move that you simply have to play. There's no g5. There's no g6. There's f5 looks just bad. The only thing you could be thinking is that f6 knight to f5.
No, he's played knight takes d4, guys. He did not stop rook takes g7.
What?
He's allowed rook takes g7 check.
Oh my gosh, what?
With the idea that, I don't know what the idea is. Maybe he thought f6, rook g6 was really good for white and just didn't see what to do here.
Look at Magnus.
Now he wants to play like...
Look at Magnus, though. Look at Magnus. He didn't budge. We're in shock.
How do you not just shoot out of your chair?
For a second.
Well, that's why Levon said he did not bother looking at Magnus on camera. He said the guy's got no tells. Maurice said he cleaned up at the poker table in London. I heard the same thing about Magnus in New York. Don't try to get a read off this guy.
I really like the ABC Wide World of Sports. It was an old sports program that really was my favorite, and every weekend I went to watch it. There was a clip, it was really famous, from the 1972 Boris Spassky-Bobby Fischer match. Bobby Fischer played bishop takes h2, and Boris just jumped out of his seat. He said, like, that traps the bishop. Well, Fabi just played a move that allows rook takes g7. If I had been in Magnus's seat, I would have been like, what?
Well, there was a delayed reaction because he is now very much up out of his chair. Who spends a bit of time in a blitz situation, your time is about 5 minutes on the clock, and decides, you know what? I'm going to let you take my g7 pawn with check, explode my position, and then take back your knight casually. Magnus is like, wait. And look at
let's talk about what the point is, guys. Rook g7, king h8, pawn takes d4, maybe rook to e2, just invading in the second rank.
What?
Trying to play like queen a4 or queen f5. Like, get a little bit of activity.
Just get what? You could have just played f6. The guy still wouldn't have had any activity whatsoever. What's the difference?
I'm trying to figure out what Bobby was thinking as, whoa, okay, that's a cool move, but is it a good one if I take on g6 and we just all start taking pawns?
There's a lot of ripping and tearing.
Yeah.
So why didn't you just back the rook up? Why?
I don't know. I thought queen g6 was a visual.
Second game in a row, right? Like, well, yesterday that was a gorgeous queen g6.
The queen g6 twice.
Yeah, look, so it's on your mind, huh?
I'm going to say this move was such a shocker that Magnus might be Joe Cool, but right now he has spent almost 3 minutes.
No way.
Inspecting this knight takes. He has not moved. He has finally decided to take. Fabi just moved. And Fabi, as with this one shocker of a move, knight takes d4, that's going to be memorable as well for this match, depending on what happens here. No matter what happens, how did Fabi actually resist f6 and decide, I'm going to take on f6? We have some ballers playing chess right now. amazing. And now Magnus at 145.
You know, this is an amazing conception, remarkable conception by Fabiano, just to give away what, to our eyes, is a critical pawn shielding his king. And it's like the worst feeling in the world if Fabi loses the game. And it's happened to me. I came up with a really great conception that simply didn't work. And I walk into the media center, and the first thing that the chess journalists ask is, why didn't you play F6? I didn't see it.
Maurice would never ask you a question like that. Yes.
I know.
Yeah, never. Okay, so he did play
Queen
F4, Queen F5, looking to play Rook
point.
E2, threatening some nasty stuff. F3 was played by Magnus. Now, what does that do about the idea of Rook E2?
I think it controls the E1 square so that after Rook E2, I can play the move Rook D2, and you don't have the check pulling me back.
Right, and I don't have Rook E8, because then you do Rook takes E2, and guess who mates first? Just by one move, but
exactly.
Hey, that's all you need.
Right.
But this Queen F5 with the Rook E2 idea is so interesting, because he can take on H5 when he wants to. He could put a Rook on E2 now, trade off rooks, and possibly take on H5, or even spend time playing like Rook E8, because the Rook on G7 is like, its hand is in the cookie jar. I remember that famous game, Geller-Erver from Zurich, 1953, where Geller goes after Erver, he puts his vicious attack in the Nimzo, his queen is all the way on H7, the Rook is on the G line, and Erver plays Rook to H8, and it's a stunner. It's like, what? You drag the guy in even more into your position, and now the queen goes offside, and then he just attacks him on the other side. When you thought white was attacking, and suddenly it was black who flipped the script. Now, there was a saving line for white, but it was such a complex position that he missed it, and it was just a beautiful win. Sometimes you go in there, and then you can't get back out properly. It's like you stick your foot in the door, and then the door closes on you, and you're like, wait a minute, can I get back out, please? It's one of those, and Magnus has brought his, and this is exactly what's happened. Oh no, that was your analysis, excuse me. Rook to E2, Rook to D2. He could trade rooks, and he's gonna get a pawn back at least.
Rook takes D2, king takes D2, queen takes H5, right? It really is remarkable. And then suppose I bring my rook back to G4, right? Like that, yeah.
Oh, that's actually dangerous. I think Fabi is probably noticing that he's not taking the pawn so easily because of Rook to G4. He might have to leave that thing alone.
So you want to play that move Rook E8 just to kick things off, get
trade pieces and play Rook E8. But what do you do about Rook G4? He's traded.
Even in that position after Rook E8, you want to still play Rook
G4? We're in the line, and that edge on the clock is important. He is up 244 to 109. Yeah. He's got to try to keep that edge, play quickly. Magnus no longer has any mating threats, any worries there. And if Magnus does bring his rook back, which he has done, now, doesn't Fabi have a queen A5 check as well? There's the only, taking on H5 is suicide, but queen E6 allows rook E4, but check, and where do you put your king? You have to put it on D1. By the way,
I love that game that you referenced between Max Erva and Efim Geller. And I
did play queen A5 check.
I had the pleasure of showing that game to the Lindenwood chess team. And it always is amazing to me when, like all of these top young guns, like they've got their engines, but they have no chess history. They didn't know anything about that game. So I could show it to them and they were like, oh, they're in awe. Queen A5 check, by the way. Where is
Queen A5 check, King D1.
King D1 to
and
deal
now
with the rook E1 mate problem if you'd gone to C1.
And now what about queen coming to B5 or A6, threatening queen E2 check and the threats removed, and queen F1 check?
B5 is definitely better, hitting the B pawn instead of A6. You get two, and the H pawn is still hanging. So rook E4 by Magnus really quickly.
Yeah.
And he's played it.
Pawns are hanging.
And now if we play Okay.
Trade rooks and pick your pawn. He can take on h5 with check at the end of rook takes e4, or he can take on b2 as well. Black's position is fine.
Or we could even play queen f1, rook e1, takes, and then take on g2. We've got so many options here.
Right. Absolutely. That's another option. He's chosen to take on e4, and he's taken on b2, and this position is perfectly fine for black. That was amazing. That was gorgeous defense by black. And the fact is, the only weakness he has now actually is the pawn on h6, which if he just defends it like he has, we see e5 on the board. White has weaknesses as well. Guys, that was amazing.
It was an amazing conception, allowing rook takes g7 check. Never seen anything like it. But here we are. Now we're in a 1 minute game, pretty close to it at least.
No, keep the edge.
Magnus is under 1 minute. And
you are Fabi, keep that edge.
Yes, exactly. You do want to do that, but will he?
Wait, what's this? Queen g3 check. Is he hanging the d6 pawn? No, because h5 is hanging with check. No, h5 is hanging with check,
yeah.
Right, so he can get that one as well. So now he's been thinking for some time, though, trying to figure out the precise square for his king as he's down to 110. This is where you got to make the last investment of time, and he's finally played king h7.
This looks like it could be potentially perpetually. It's just a little... It feels like maybe black will have some perps on the light squares, or even white could like attack f7, like with queen f4, and then you have to go back to g7, etc. Well, actually, what after queen f4?
There was a queen trade possible as well. There was a queen trade possible with queen d3 check. That endgame looks bad, but the black king would be stuck in the position. But this ending looks bad as the king could actually gallop around and the pawn structure will be healthier. So he had to just make sure that that was winning for him. That was a radical alteration of the position. And that's why he played king h7. But now queen f3, and guess who's down on time? 36 seconds now for
Fabiano.
We're no longer in precise analysis, folks. We are now in
queen c4 played, and that would have been the same answer on queen f4 because you don't want to play king g7 and allow queen f6 check. After queen c4, queen e4 check played by Magnus, followed by a quick king g7, and they're both on 41 seconds exactly.
Yep, Magnus now slipping under with 36. He's taking on d6. We expect a recapture on the d6 square. Fabi should be playing quickly now. He does get his bonus 5 seconds. b7's hanging, but d4 is hanging, and king to d2.
Well, in a 1 minute battle, online battle where you're playing with computers, I have to say, I've seen Magnus play a remarkable number of matches on chess.com, even against Hikaru, and at 1 minute chess, Magnus is amazingly good. Like, wow. But this is a 5 second bonus, so it's not the same thing.
5 second bonus. That does give
20 seconds to 30 seconds.
But Fabi's hitting 2 pawns right now, the one on h5 directly, and also queen a5 check.
There's 20 seconds left, 10 seconds left for Magnus.
Whoa! 7 seconds.
7.
And he finally made queen f3. He actually went down to 6 seconds and got his 5 second bonus.
Wow. That move does cover both those threats that you mentioned, Maurice. It defends the pawn on h5, and it did stop queen a5 check, takes a3. Queen g5 check, king c3 on the board. Magnus's king a little bit more active in this queen and pawn ending.
The queen a5 check, and your king has to go backwards. Like, this is a draw. d5. Okay. He said, no, we're going to play chess. G4, weakening his pawn on G4. And B6, very solid. Magnus at 11, king B2.
It was necessary to keep the H5 pawn guarded. And now look at them. Okay, now they're feeling the heat of the clock. Both players are playing very, very quickly. Some very difficult decisions, too. We just saw a check, by the way, eyeballing a potential for queen a6, and Magnus has played a5.
With a queen, if you take it, play queen a6 check, and
he's done it.
He did capture. Why did he capture? Why did he do this?
That was terrible. That was a very bad decision made under the duress of the clock.
And the problem is when he takes on G4, he might lose D5.
I know.
And he's at 7 seconds, 6 seconds.
No.
He's ticking down. He needs to move his
A
king.
clutch game. Oh,
2-1.
King
And he's played King F6.
And the problem is he can't take on G4 because D5 is hanging. So now he's in big trouble. And C4 by Magnus, you cannot capture that because
that's
of a trade and a winning ending. Fabi in big trouble, 4 seconds, 3. And he took on G4 and gave Magnus 2 connected passers. He has 1. Oh my goodness, this clock situation, terrible for him. Magnus now just has to deal with this F pawn. His C pawn is actually faster.
Exactly.
That's right. It's just about whether or not he can shield his king, but it looks like he will be able to. Oh boy.
The pawns are equal in pace at the moment. Queen D5 check. He will be able to play C6 at some point, and that pawn, at least the C8 square is guarded by the black queen at the moment.
But watch out for cross checks, Maurice. It could just all be over if we get a pawn to D7 with a check. Queen D6 check.
Fabi now down. What did he just do?
And King G5 is Queen G6
no,
check
it's just
win?
over.
That's game. He's got to resign.
Queen
He
G6
blundered this ending away.
With check.
C8 is coming with check, and he has to resign. Look at Magnus's face.
And he's disgusted as Fabi as he saw that the queen was coming with a check, giving him no chance in the end game. And Magnus wins a clutch game after a brilliant conception from Fabi. I mean, it's hard to forget about that allowing rook takes G7 check. But in the end of the day, scoreboard, Magnus got it done.
And what's it about? What did we say?
Not getting 20 seconds versus 20
seconds.
seconds.
Not your friend. Time is your enemy. You cannot get under 30 seconds. Mistakes will creep into your play. So get into flow and keep that edge. The players who can do that, play quick moves, the Hikaru Nakamuras of the world, the Magnus Carlsens of the world, they, with a minute left, it's just like, please, please, please. You ever seen Keanu Reeves in The Matrix when at the end he realizes bullets don't bother him anymore? And Mr. Smith, I think his name is, comes at him, and the guy's punching as fast as possible, and he's like, please, this is nothing. That's how bullet players handle it. Like, I don't care how fast it gets. I'm just going to find the next move, next move, next move, next move, and none of them are going to be major blunders. That's what happened to Fabi here. In that bullet situation, he just couldn't keep up. He just couldn't keep up, made that mistake, and 2 points gone. Magnus takes the lead again.
That's right, Magnus. Big victory there as he now has a 4-2 lead against Fabiano, who will try now to hit back, just like he did in Game 4 with the white pieces. Can he do it?
Better not lose. A 6-2 score after such great play today would be demoralizing.
Well, he did come back from that exact score against Wesley, so
that is true.
Don't want to try it twice.
No, don't do that. Especially
not against Magnus.
Especially 2 clutch games, because that's a 4-point clutch lead.
Good point. So that would actually be worse.
Your tie breaks are terrible in this case. One of your wins in the clutch game later would not bring any solace to you if you ever end in a tie, even though it's for 3 points. So to not lose this next game.
Yeah, and
this
by
game he played so well. He played so well until he took on A5, like all the way down until he took. Why would you take on A5? There wasn't even a threat in the position. Take on B6 wasn't even a threat. Magnus just kind of threw the pawn up there. You could have moved your king. I mean, could we go back to that moment in the game?
Well, just to interrupt you, Maurice, that after the move A4, and you're right, A5, you'd never take it, of course. That was just Queen D2. Let's make a draw.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was like, that shuts down everything. There's just nothing to discuss. It's a perpetual after you play Queen takes D5. But going to
Queen D5,
which is
Queen D5, Queen
when you play
check, Queen
A5,
D4.
you would. I don't think in any blitz or bullet game or 3-minute or 5-minute would you play BA. He just blanked out. He missed Queen A6 check.
That's a one mover. Maybe he missed that after Queen takes on E. No, it's check. You got to go back and then check, and then he's going to take on A5. I don't know. Time pressure.
Time pressure.
Time pressure. It's pure and simple. He might have thought he had Queen G4 right now. Actually, that's what he played, and allowed Queen G5.
I think he played King G7. Yeah.
Oh, he played King G7 first, and then he took. And then C4 happened. Oh, my goodness, that was bad news. That was really bad.
Well, that clock, the ticking clock, as you say, Maurice, it makes fools of us all.
I didn't say it. I think Alakine said it.
Really?
Yep, I think so.
I thought,
you thought I was the one who made that statement? That's all.
I attribute it to you. I never heard anybody
whoever
else.
said it, it's sure true.
I'm pretty sure Tarish said the first quote about.
Tarish said everything.
I'm pretty sure Tarish said
like Yogi Berra, right?
I think it was
Attribute them all.
Who said time pressure makes fools of us all. But, Tartakower also said everything.
He did.
Yeah.
He did.
So we could, attribute it to all the older generation. This is the way back. We're going back to the 1910s and 1920s, the classics we grew up on. And you've got to respect time. And
set the stage for us, Jen.
Well, here we have it. 4 points for Magnus Carlsen, Fabiano with 2, and that's because Magnus won that clutch game, as we've now had 3 decisive results in a row after 2 draws that were well played and not the most exciting games of clutch chess. We've actually had 3 thrillers in a row. Will the 4th one keep up the trend?
We hope so for Fabi's sake, because he'll be seeking revenge and a tied match in this second clutch game and the last game of today.
That's right. And actually, if he does win this game, it would be a rare case in which we would actually have no tiebreak advantage going into the day 2. I don't think we've had that yet in clutch chess.
Exactly. I can't recall in the quarterfinals or in the semifinals that both players went to bed with an equal score.
Yeah, it's usually been one person won a clutch game and then there was a draw as well. Right. So this will be really interesting if Fabi does come back, but it's a tall order as he has to win the game, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Last time it was a Rosalima, right? Yeah, and
we saw that H4, H5.
line.
We said Alpha Zero, Leela chess kind of play. Will we see more of that happen in the game?
I don't think so. I think
so
Magnus
much
gonna
more
revert
than that, because it was like H4, H5, Knight H2
and
with the
it's
bishop,
begun.
and they're repeating the line.
So far in the line, there it is. There it is again.
On the board.
Wow. Okay.
H4.
And Knight G8 again.
Yep.
What?
You gotta love it. And Knight H2. I'm telling you, I mean, this is, again, we said Alpha Zero and Leela influencing the play of today's Grandmasters. 97 Knight G8 Yaz. Is that in your winning chess strategies?
No.
Well, backward knight moves, Maurice, you're always talking about how backward knight moves are hard to see. And here, one backward knight move deserves another, Knight G8 to Knight H2. But the knights aren't going to come back. Knight F6, F4, Bishop E7, Knight C3, all on the board.
A knight went to C3? Really? A natural square?
Don't worry, it's going to go back to B1, and then it's going to go to D2 later.
Yeah. Oh, now you're talking.
Okay.
Now chess makes sense.
Or maybe Knight A4, B3, Knight B2. That's the other option.
That's hitting the C pawn with the idea of going to C4. I see. That's deep. That's real. Now we're really talking commentary there, boy. Wow, that makes. I'm sure Tarish didn't say any of that. By the way.
Okay.
Also said,
but I'm going to say, I find.
Isn't that what Tarish? Knight on the rim is not far from being dim.
I thought it was more simple than that. Knight on the rim is dim. Yes,
me too. That's what I heard as well. That feels like an old-fashioned insult. I don't think people call each other dim anymore, right? Maybe that was more popular way back when. Right. Now they have more choice words.
Yeah.
Dim.
Yeah.
But okay, D6. And now I find this position to be easier to play for white. Black's got the 2 bishops, but it requires a more delicate hand. Whereas for white, I feel like my moves come a little bit more obviously. Queen F3, H6. H6 was Fabi's choice, by the way. He just got on with it.
Let's do it. H6 undermines the knight. So in case of G6, I guess something similar to the previous outing of this. He could play for Bishop G5.
But yeah, sir, didn't this H6 move open up a G file the first time. You showed that Magnus could have put his rooks on that G file and take advantage earlier.
In the previous game, the bishop was on F8, so H6 had I want to say more zip-zap pizzazz to it. I don't know.
But he could take it. You can take it. You can win it back when you like. I mean, you can win it back whenever you like, but the G file is open.
That is true.
And he did take it. And Fabi played F5.
Shutting down this bishop so that even if you do possess the G file with the move rook G8, you're not following it up with bishop H3. And Fabi is saying, okay, I'm going to take back my pawn with bishop takes H6, and I got a wedgie.
Field of battle, though, is interesting because the G file looks like someplace that black can dominate. He's put his rook on G8. I mean, you could say you can have the pawn, then I'm going to move my bishop out of the way, and you have that wedgie situation. Where to put the bishop? D7 looks like it'll be buried for a while, but A6 looks like, as soon as I spoke, C4 appears on the board by Magnus. Looks like he's planning to get some more action on the other side, a queen B6 idea. And then you can also go to A6 and get some play on D3 or the C4 pawn.
Possibly, yes. Bishop A6. I'm more worried about this queen coming to B2. Queen B6 check, queen takes B2. So if I take, it would be great if I could just get in these consolidating moves, B3, queen D3. Then I'm a really happy camper. The problem is I think you're just too fast.
Doing what? Winning my B pawn? I would be so happy.
I'm worried about it. Yeah, king H1, take it.
Really? Queen D3?
Queen D3? So what? You think you're winning my queen? I don't think so.
I'm just saying, you open the file. Let's see what happens. You're ignoring me.
Bishop A. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of leaving my king in the center. I know that in today's chess, modern chess, there are so many variations of the Sicilian, which you both play, where black's king stays in the center forever and ever.
Knight D5 in this position is certainly something worth thinking about. Trading queens and trading. No. Got to take on F6 first and then take.
So
I'm going to fight for the B file with you. I wouldn't worry.
I want my queen back.
I hear you, Jen.
I like the little crying that went, I want my queen back. I'm not completely happy. Let's see where we stand. By
King
the way.
H1 is what he played.
After F5, C4, King H1. Okay.
Sidestepping that tactic.
He does allow takes, queen takes. So, I mean, okay, trading off that double pawn makes...
what do you mean?
Strategic sense.
Strategic sense? The king has nowhere to go. You just open up the C file. If you now trade off these pawns and put a rook on C1, at least I see a target. No? I mean, I'm your king. You may not be losing, or maybe even not even worse, but at least you gave me an open file. I'd be happy to at least, I couldn't open the file myself. And I was trying to figure out exactly how to open the file on the queen side when the pawn was on C5. I was thinking, how does white open up this position? I got to move my knight. I got to play some C3, D4 business. Do I get rook B1, B4? Right? I'm trying to figure it out. You play C4 and then take on D3. And I didn't have to do anything. I just had to move my king out of the way so you could give me the C file and hope that I could take pot shots at you. I got a knight D5 threat potentially coming. So I don't know. This is sharp stuff. And it looks like Magnus has decided, yeah, I'm not sure I want to give you that open file myself.
Well, he's definitely taking his time. Taking his time is Magnus.
Fabi really desperately wants to win this game and be tied. That would just be such a great heavyweight fight. 2 draws, then Magnus hits him. Fabi hits him back. Magnus hits him. Fabi hits back. We're tied going into the clutch games tomorrow. Each clutch game would be worth $15,000. 15 grand per clutch game. 30 grand would shift completely over. Actually, they're currently
right, and then
14.
if you're also talking about the swing with the 50 to 35,000, there could be $45,000 on one game.
I'm wrong because Magnus just won the last game, so the money is in his pocket. So that would not happen.
2,000 went into Magnus's pocket by virtue of that victory. But wasn't it decided by popular vote that if game 12 of this match ends in a draw, the clutch money goes to the commentators?
Yeah, especially since it's the commentators who have that vote. So that sounds.
The crew, we can split it up with the crew, guys. Come on.
Oh yes, of course.
We'll give them a little cut.
Look at the crew.
I'm just getting a confirmation
our producer
that was the popular decision.
When you said that, our producer Tom said in our ear, "That's incorrect." And then when you changed it, he was like, "Ooh, wait a minute, wait a minute. Let's look at the fine print."
Okay, guys. Magnus Carlsen has been in a deep 10.
And he's played a bishop a6. He's woken out of his slumber to play this bishop a6 move, both defending c4, but also placing pressure on the d3 point, which, by the way, can be reinforced sometime by rook g3.
But
that means you're telling us to play
attack. The attack. I see. Yes.
Rook f3 instead. But doesn't white have d4 now just to make your last two moves look silly?
Yeah, that looks like a nice looking move.
Or is this bad strategically?
D4 looks enticing.
I'm not so sure.
The only thing I don't like about D4 is that E4 could get a little tender.
You want to sacrifice in Sicilian style?
You're so sprightly with these exchange sack. You see them so quickly these days.
No. It was Jen. Jen was making the suggestion that the problem with D3, D4.
Oh, it's the E4 square. I see.
Yeah.
And so maybe you sack.
But I like your chill move, Queen B6, is just, putting pressure on D4 and B2 and
maybe forcing some resolutions. Yeah.
I mean, my bishop on A6 is terrible, but it seems like everything else is good. So,
well, I must say that Varujan's kind of, he's warming to Black's position. He's suggesting the move castle long.
Well, first white has to make a move.
Oh,
white
sorry.
Needs to play something.
After bishop a6.
White played b3, by the way.
White played part b3, and he's suggesting takes castles long. Sorry, I meant to include b3. I did.
Man, you're asking for it again. Knight d5.
Hey, don't say I'm asking for it. I'm a nice guy. I mean,
with knight d5, you could take
the pawn.
You take the knight and play c5 maybe, and slow me down.
Good point.
I go for knight d5, but b3 takes on the board.
Right.
Not sure which. I guess he took the d pawn to limit black. Yeah, he did take the d pawn to limit white's choice. And what now?
Var says castles.
D5 played by Magnus Carlsen.
Woo!
King in the center.
It's getting hot in here, boy.
That's a big time move.
5.
Okay, so takes on e4 is the threat because the pawn on d3 is pinned. So suppose we get out of dodge something like rook to f3. Nope, that's not what Fabi did. Fabi played
takes on e4 looks so attractive, but and if you take back, it's bad news. I mean,
just pause for a second because you never want to see. Woo!
Oh, chess is being played in these parts, boy. He just played d5 and castled queenside. What? We're seeing conceptions today. My goodness, this move.
Wow.
d5 and castles queenside.
Well, Jen, when we sat down today and we said number 1 versus number 2 in the world, we knew we were in for something special. We have been regaled.
It's amazing. Yes, you get the sense that you're not only playing number 1 and number 2 in the world, but it feels like we're playing number 1 and number 2 in this format in history, or 2 of the top players in this format ever. They're just playing so well considering these are 10-minute games, guys. Knight takes d5, by the way, was played, and now as white, how do we try to make use of the fact that we've got all of these open files? Like, I want to try to play queen f3 and threaten like knight takes d5.
Good looking move.
But the problem is, it seems like, yeah, maybe queen f3, because then also if knight c3, I get to play rook c3 and protect my d pawn.
Wow, attacking the pawn on c6, I might add.
Be
But
careful,
queen
though. Be careful. A bishop dropping back to b7 with the idea of c5 might wake you up late. Maybe not right now. Take on c3 and then break the bishop back. Threatening c5 is what I was saying. That could wake you up.
Yeah, that piece of that piece is turning to be
that G file suddenly.
Well, it's about the two bishops, right? I mean, that's one of the strengths that Black had going from the very beginning in this game.
No, it's about the light squared bishop, Jen. It doesn't matter if you have the two bishops, as long as I can compete with your dark square bishop. That's a whole different thing. But look at the light square bishop that I cannot compete with. This
well, what about? Okay, so
problem.
knight f3 now we would have to play, but let's focus on the game itself, because after
he did play queen f3.
He did play queen f3. Okay, so it could be knight c3, rook c3, bishop b7.
And his time dropped. His time dropped below Magnus's in that deep think. His time dropped below Magnus's. So let's really focus on that. And this position is chaotic. Magnus played an amazing conception. His king is weak. He's trusting that that's not going to matter as much.
There's another move too here, guys, too, right? We could go knight b4 with the idea that excuse me, with the idea that c6 is defended, so you're not going to get to play rook takes c6. But more importantly, I mean,
love it.
Crashing down against the d3 pawn. Boy,
looking move.
Either bishop takes or rook takes. Rook takes will come with tempo. Bishop takes comes with tempo. So some nice options, I want to say, for Magnus, for Black in this position.
Watch out for f6 and queen f5 check, though. That's going to be in the position at some point as well.
f6 and
yeah, if your knight moves away, there's an f6. You know, just bishop a3 on the board.
Bishop a3.
And knight e4 instantly sacking an exchange with just no hesitation whatsoever. I think that he realized that he was in trouble and he said, no way am I going to suffer. Rook c2 was knight b4 with tempo. So he said, I'm not going to suffer. I'm going to give up an exchange the way Wesley So did against him. If you remember in their match, he didn't want to see this position. And Magnus said, no, I'm taking the exchange. It's mine. You're not.
Well, he's done it. That's on the board. And
now maybe White wants to play something like a knight f6 move, looking at playing if knight takes f6, rook takes c6. So that could be in the cards.
My problem with Fabi's position is, and look, Yasser went immediately to point out, your knight on h2 belongs somewhere in the game. Your knight should be,
like c5.
Could I teleport my knight to c5? If you teleport my knight to c5, I'll say, okay, good compensation. But with that knight on h2, you're a piece down. I'm up an exchange and you're a piece down. Your bishop might show up in the game, but that knight on h2 takes a while to giddy up that horsey and make it work. And I'm just not impressed by the sacrifice at the moment.
Now, I mean, I hear you loud and clear about the exchange sack by Fabi, but let's face it, that the problem was after bishop a3, keeping the exchange would have led to really an initiative, a very nice and simple initiative for Magnus. Whether you liked it or not, this had to be done. And from a practical point of view, and again, I'll just point out the times. 5 minutes for Fabi, 2 minutes for Magnus. Magnus thinking things over. Magnus is stewing here because he sees that this knight on c5 is actually more than an annoyance. It's shutting down the bishop and it's giving White play. So he hasn't followed up with, having won the exchange. He hasn't followed up instantly. And it took him a while, and something about knight b4 he didn't like, but he came back to it, and he's played it.
Well, now knight c5 can be met by a capture on d3.
With the bishop, you mean?
No, I was going to take with the bishop.
Yeah.
Even taking with the knight was playable, by the way.
And what about knight f6 and a3? Just trying to...
Your d pawn is hanging.
I know. You mean you just play rook takes? You mean you just play rook takes d3? Then at least I have. Well, no, that's probably not good. I was thinking I might have knight g8. Take 2 rooks for the queen.
Queen e4 is rook d4, no?
But knight c5 was played, by the way, in the game instead of knight f6. Knight c5, hitting that bishop on a6.
I don't know. Now he can take on d3 with something.
Well, if bishop...
Knight d3 doesn't work because of knight a6.
And if bishop d3, even there, like, okay, bishop d3, I was thinking...
Played bishop d3 on the board.
f6.
And f6. That just came. I mean, I knew that was possible against a bishop. What's going on now? What?
He's trying to play knight d3 and queen f5 check, snack on h7.
No, he has an a. He hasn't. No, I thought he had a3 as a threat. Okay, here's the deal. Magnus is at 57 seconds. 57 seconds and counting. Fabi with 4:14. Fabi needs to defend this position. Be careful, Yaz. You just hung a knight. Queen g4 check with that move, bishop g6. That's the kind of mistake he's looking forward to somehow happening. So this is it. Magnus at 39 seconds. Fabi must really focus and see if Magnus can play perfect chess from here.
Don't play e4 because that allows queen f5 check and bishop f4.
Yes, 26 seconds. Magnus ticking down now on the clock as Fabi's going to count on the clock being his friend. He's played bishop back to b5. And we're hearing it's a blunder. It looks like the bishop is a4 playable?
So
where's that bishop going?
4, okay.
This is not
and
a
then
stable
if we go to
square,
bishop a6, you have knight takes a6 and c6 hangs.
And c6, well, there's a tactic on d1, Jen. Watch out.
Oh, yeah, good point. Okay.
A4 is played, though. A4 has been played, and Magnus, with 20 seconds left, and he is not happy with what just happened. Bishop back to a6. But what's the deal? Bishop a6, what happens after that? Because you cannot take on a6 and try to win because of a rook d1 at the end. Diverting
rook d1,
your
right, and then knight f1, rook takes f1.
Yeah, so Fabi now with 3:38, Magnus with 25 seconds.
This strikes me as like this opportunity here suddenly for this knight is tethered to the bishop. I'm thinking queen check, knight f3, get that knight back into the game. We got bishop d2 and knight takes e5 as ideas. Oh my gosh, 3 minutes.
What's the material count?
He's got to make sure whatever he does, be practical and move with over 2 minutes on his clock.
So
that's whatever he does. He's looking now. He knows that there are ideas and he's trying to find the next move. Whatever he does, make sure he has 2 minutes left. Do not let your time go lower because Magnus will catch up and you'll be in deep trouble. So just right now, there's something and he feels it. And he's played his knight, just brought his knight into the game with knight to g4. May not be the best move, but just stay in the game. And king...
Ooh, whoa.
Wait a minute. He could take on e5 and play for bishop f4?
Remember, you gave a line where there was a rook d1. Now that the knight has actually made loof for the king, can we take on c6?
Wait, can he take knight takes a6, knight takes e5? Hello, take. Well, no, take on e5 and threaten knight c6.
Knight takes e6 has been played.
You can't touch the knight. And he's done it. He's back, and he's threatening knight c6, and all his pieces work. The knight that was on h2 is now on e5, and Fabi is back and winning. The pawn's hanging on c6 cannot be defended. Magnus is looking dazed.
And
just played
Magnus
queen
is down to
b7.
Queen to b7, but knight c6 check is possible.
And take the rook on d8, and you're up material. Is this an endgame you want, though?
Yeah, that's easy. That's really easy with this pawn on f6.
Turnaround. What a turnaround. He could take on c6, take on d8. He's got 2 minutes and 13 seconds. Magnus at 14 seconds. We'll have to defend this pawn down endgame. I so don't want to trade queens.
And Fabi's thinking though. What is he thinking about here? Is he thinking about taking with the rook?
No,
because
don't
he has paused for a little bit. Maybe bishop f4. He's thinking about interpolating that move, but then king a8 and knight c6 is no longer check.
Okay, he's at
That doesn't look
151.
right.
He's looking for a killer blow that forces resignation. He sees the end game, but he doesn't want it. He does not want that end game. He sees it very cleanly. He sees he can win material. Will he chance it? The best thing, though, is keep time on the clock. Whatever you do, look at him. He's going into even a deeper think right now. I'm not liking this. He needs to just go, just flow. Get in flow, Fabi. Take on C6, which he's done. Which he's done. And now he's going to look one more time, and he's decided finally to take. So he is ahead in material, which is remarkable given where he was. Yeah, so you were mentioning rook e1. He's played queen e2. He doesn't want to trade queens.
Right.
I don't mind that.
Rook e1, rook e7. I was thinking, like, let's unleash the power of the f-pawn. Knight b8, guys.
Oh, I love this for White. White has played this just right. Now he just needs to find some flow moves. He cannot play bishop f4. Well, maybe defend your b pawn. Do something. Keep the game going. Bishop f4, nice move.
If you take on b3, we've got to check, and if you go back, we've got to take, and we've got a rook check and takes, and that's an easy win.
Magnus is shaking his head, and he moves with only 5 seconds left on his clock now at 10 seconds after bishop f4, queen d5 on the board, centralizing the queen. Does he have a knockout blow? It doesn't seem that the knight is defending really well, but this is a point. Just find a natural move. Be careful, Yaz. Oh, you don't mind trading queens here. I understand. Rook c7 is a possibility. The b pawn is also hanging. Fabi, you got 50 seconds. Don't blow this on time now. Got to make a move.
The tension's rising.
It's here. If he wins this, he's in business, but he's got to make a move, and he's looking around. And queen d3, no, that's not going to happen. So b4, make a move. Just go. The queen can't leave d5, so, or maybe he's worried about knight c6, knight d4?
He's played rook c7, which I thought was knight c6, knight d4. I thought that was the most natural.
That's good.
Because you're eyeballing, Magnus down to just 5 seconds?
And now bishop to e3,
4 seconds
the
for Magnus. 2.
Knight takes f6.
Knight takes f6. You're allowing rook takes a7 check.
Oh my goodness, this is
there.
It is crushing.
King b8 forced, of course.
Only 22 seconds for Fabi. He has not handled this quickly. Queen d1 is not a real threat. Knight g4 though is a problem. He has to fix his rook, and he's played rook e7. Very wise. Rook to d7, allowing a trade. Bishop f4 check.
Well, hold on. There's a bishop f4 check sighting, isn't there?
He's got 11 seconds. He's got less time than Magnus. He's got less time right now. He's traded rooks. He's up 2 pawns. This is winning. Just keep going. b4. This is it. He can handle this. No threats, no real issues. Leave your pieces where they are and start marching the ponies.
He's simplified.
He's 1 pawn up.
Sorry, I meant the 2 pass pawns. Two connected pawns.
It looks
I don't
like
care about the other
Maurice.
guys on the other side.
It does look like 2 pawns.
This is 2. 4 seconds.
What?
3.
Oh
Finally
my
played
God.
knight to b6 did Magnus.
I think we're getting a delay or something, because I swear Magnus
there is a delay.
going down to just
definitely a delay. And is there a perpet?
Seconds.
Is there a perpet he has to worry about? Because and now queen d6 offering a trade of queens.
I'm not sure
seems
about
like the
this.
best gift he could have given. He could have given Magnus. Is this endgame still?
I'm not sure. Why didn't Magnus play knight b6 and provoke the pawn to a light square? Now we've got b5. b5 check, king here is a tempo. Oh,
a5 on the board. Now she just played bishop to c5.
I think he's blockading. He's got the perfect blockade.
How? Why? You're stuck.
So our king can come and win your queen side.
The king is coming. The king can just start marching up the board. Just don't lose the g pawn.
Yeah.
You can't take anybody.
You're going to lose the g pawn. You're going to lose the g pawn, and I'm going to sacrifice my knight and put my king on a8.
Oh, how do I win your pawns?
Oh boy.
How do I win your pawns? That's the problem.
I think it's a draw.
You're sure? How do you get my pawn? Bishop, like, drop. What if he keeps everybody? Drop the bishop. He's dropped the bishop back. Why are you winning the pawn?
So let's say he plays king a6. I wait for your king to march here, to h4, and I go knight f4 and knight e2.
King h4 has been played.
By the way, no threat yet.
King a6, g3 on the board. Knight e2, I'm not giving you this pawn. You can forget that. Oh, bishop d6, that's it. Bishop d6, guard the pawn. What do you do now? What do you do now? The bishop's doing, oh man, why are bishops better than knights? Because of this. This is it, guarding everybody. Can he take now? Is there a king c6 he has to worry about? No, because he can just drop his bishop back. He's won that pawn. He's gonna win the f pawn. Fabi's gonna do it.
Just don't play king g5 here. King g6, though.
The last trick, just play king g6, and he should be okay. Wait, but knight e4?
Knight e4 anyway, right? And
Okay,
then
he hits the bishop, he hits the pawn.
Oh, but he gets it. You can't take the b pawn.
Because the a6 pawn, the a pawn will run.
He's done it. He has done it, guys.
And
What
Fabi
a
came
clutch
back.
victory. Amazing.
Win, 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 win. We've had two comebacks now from Fabiano. Magnus hits some and Fabi hits back. And now we are exactly tied up in both points and tie breaks going into day 2.
Wow.
This is what you want. This is what you want. We are, as commentators, we want, as fans, you want to see something close. And these guys are giving us a show.
And it so much reminds me of the London match, right?
Yeah, right.
Oh, God, yeah. Just trading blows every game, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Crazy
Win, 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 win. If only 4 wins in a row. They traded blows. They're tied exactly. And it will all come down to tomorrow with neither side having an edge. Remarkable chess going on right now. Just amazing. And we have Fabi on the line. Fabiano Caruana, who had to bounce back twice to tie up this match. Fabi, we are on the edges of our seats. Tell us about these 2 comebacks, 2 great players trading blows.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yes.
Yeah, it was.
Just saying, it's been remarkable so far.
Very intense day. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it started out kind of boring, and then it got, okay, I guess the first game wasn't boring. I was just lucky to survive that. But then it started to get extremely crazy, yeah, with especially these, I mean, these 2 Sicilian games were incredibly stressful. And also the Petrov game, which I lost, was, I mean, I felt like I was kind of slightly worse throughout the game, but it should always be a draw, this queen and d. But once you get low on time, it does get kind of difficult because white always has a safety net and black always has to be careful each move. And okay, this game, I'm sure I was lost at some point. I mean,
the last clutch game, you mean game 6?
But yeah. I mean, Magnus just got low on time. I assume he was trying to find a good way to kind of finish the job. But yeah, the opening didn't work out. I mean, this is just a disaster. So I was at least happy that I found knight e4. I mean, I thought at least this makes it not so easy for black.
Sacrificing the exchange, you mean?
Yeah, at least here the onus is on him to find the accurate way to win. F6 was maybe good practically because it gives him so many options. But he got low on time here, and this is why it became difficult for him.
Right, you found a4 and g4, and that night looked just lost in the wilderness, and then all of a sudden it came back to the center of town and turned into a beast.
No, I was probably just, honestly, I was just playing on his time trouble, which wasn't, I guess, didn't lead to very good quality. But in this position with 20 seconds, it's really hard to actually be accurate. Yeah, here I thought it was over, but then he kept resisting in this position. And I was like, it was so hard to win this position, despite it being so overwhelming. But I guess I never let it go. At least I hope I didn't.
Technically, you didn't. There were seemingly other moves that may have been quicker, but in the end, you won. So now it's all square. Did you expect the match to go like this? What are your feelings for tomorrow?
No, I mean, how can you expect... I don't know if I was expecting anything, but how can you expect so many decisive games and trading blows. But overall, considering that I was never really in the lead today, and I was sort of playing catch up, it's very good to be on equal footing with him now. I mean, to lose a clutch game and then to win a clutch game in return is, I mean, especially if I had lost this, I think the match situation is hopeless. Not only from like a 4-point deficit, but also the tiebreaks are just basically means I have to win my last 2 games, like for sure. So not to lose this game and especially to win it is really huge for me.
All right, indeed, you certainly kept us on the edges of our seats. Mm-hmm. Thanks very much. Rest up, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks.
And we do have the world champion, Magnus Carlsen, who is standing by. Magnus, it's been a wild ride today for we as commentators, and I'm sure for the fans. How do you perceive the day as a player?
Pretty frustrating, I have to say, especially considering the last game. But I think we certainly fought well. But it's yeah. But as I said, not being up is not something I'm happy with, obviously.
You know, it's unusual for us to see you in time pressure. It would look like you didn't quite have your flow. I know you like to talk about flow being very important to you. Any reason for that, do you think?
Well, the positions were very difficult to play, I would say. And I mean, if you followed the games from the Chess 24 events, the invitational tournaments, and I've been in time pressure quite a bit, so it's nothing new at all for me. But no, obviously it becomes a problem when you encounter something that you haven't foreseen, and then you have no time to figure it out, and that's obviously what happened in the last game. I mean, I thought I did everything right. I thought I was just completely winning. Then he goes f6, a move that I hadn't seen at all, and all of a sudden I have no time to figure out what to do in a position that's absolutely irrational and very, very difficult to figure out. So yeah. I mean, all in all, it's just really frustrating, but that's the way it is sometimes.
I know you're a confident man. You said that you were optimistic about this match. How are your feelings right now? I know you're frustrated, but about tomorrow, what do you need to do to get back that mojo?
Well, I mean, I think I'm a better chess player, and I also think I'm playing better most of the time. Like, I felt like in the last game, like he didn't really understand the essence of the position at all. Like, and I got a winning position without any effort whatsoever. But I mean, I gotta convert. Obviously, he's a strong player. He fights incredibly well. But I mean, obviously, I would love to play faster, but if I'm going to play faster, I would have to play. You know, a lot less complicated chess, but I think that would also be less fun for the spectators. So, I think I'm in decent shape. It's just incredibly frustrating to blow that last game.
Well, Magnus, thanks for joining us. Indeed, get your rest, get your mind right. We look forward to seeing you play tomorrow.
Thank you.
Guys, that was just amazing. We've never seen this score.
Yeah.
We've never seen this score in clutch chess. We had the American version. They played 3 matches. We've had the 4 quarterfinals, the 2 semifinals. That's 9. It's 4 and 2 and 3. Yep, that's 9 matches. And it's the first time a day has ended with a 4-4 tie. and especially the way they did it. This was not your boring draws, guys.
Yeah, that left us all
Everything's tied
absolutely
up.
breathless. And now that it's all tied up, yes, tomorrow, are we gonna have our first tiebreak of clutch chess? Well, we could.
It's possible. It's absolutely possible, indeed. We might see that as well for the first time. Two young players.
And remind us again, Maurice, how much of those games, 11 and 12 in clutch chess worth?
Well, those are currently what they were worth at the beginning of the day, $13,000. So we have 4 regular games, and then we're going to have the 2 clutch games, which will each worth $13,000. If they do what they did today, they'll take the money off the table, each pocket that, and since clutch points will be dead even as well, they will play a 2-game blitz tiebreak. And if they're tied after that, we will go to the Armageddon game, which, by the way, will be decided by a flip of a coin. So, whoa, these guys showed us something today that was absolutely remarkable. And just as a commentator and a fan, I mean, look at our predictions instead even. We're all happy with our picks at the moment. I mean, just absolutely incredible the way this has gone, guys. This is what we want to see in a finals.
It's true, and it's a clash of styles, as it's Fabiano who has this precision, trying to blitz out the opening and get a big time advantage. Magnus trying to outwit him at the end. I mean, it's been an incredible day. They're so tightly matched, guys. This is going to be a thriller tomorrow. Don't miss it. We're going to be back at the same time, 1:50 on St. Louis, where we are. St. Louis Chess Club is sponsoring this event, so big thank you to them. And I'm so excited, Yaz. I'm thankful for everybody who joined us and spent your Saturday with us. Please join us tomorrow, same time, same place.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow for the exciting conclusion of our finals match.
Will it be Magnus or Fabi? We'll find out soon.